Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 162. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comics forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Voices in my head tell me soap operas are dangerous, but I ignore them when it comes to comics. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Yeah. One of
that
my
comment
favorite,
will make sense.
One of my favorite lines from this particular recording from you. Fascinated by that justification. On this episode, we are joined by Vin Ferrante, the writer of Witch Hunter, as we discuss Oracle 1 through 3. And we have a really in-depth discussion about the artwork, the writing, the character and her importance, some of the tangents that story led us on as far as a commentary on society in general. It was a great discussion, so I hope you guys really enjoy that one as part of our discussion on Battle for the Cowl. I want to remind everyone quickly about the Hero Initiative. Raging Bullets continues to support this wonderful program to help yesterday's creators who are in need of support today. It's heroinitiative.org if you'd like some more information, but it's just such a wonderful program to help out yesterday's creators who are in need of our help today. And just the cost of a comic book, if you consider supporting them, is a handy-dandy PayPal link on the website. It's all helping comic creators who've really laid the groundwork and the foundation for this wonderful hobby that we participate in and enjoy today. I want to remind everyone to check out our show sponsor, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com, we're at the end of May, so it's your last chance to get in your orders for this month if you haven't had a chance to. It's also, depending on when you download this episode, it's also a great time to get ready to start taking a look at the new deals that are coming up when June's listings come up for DCBService.com. That's some of my favorite times to see, the discounts that are 75% off, which... budgets are tight these days, and the wonderful discounts that are being offered, 40% off, 50% off, 75% off, just wonderful discounts. It's a great chance for you to save some money on this wonderful hobby. They do it on trades, they do it on monthly titles. So whatever, hardcovers, absolutes, so anything that you're looking for, definitely check out the DCBService.com ads to see if you can save yourself some money on these great comics to be able to support this medium and keep it around for all of us. I want to quickly remind everyone about CollectionDrawer.com. That's CollectionDrawer.com. The Collection Drawer is excited to announce their latest companion product exclusively for drawer boxes. Drum roll, please, the Box Sort Upright Dividers. With this addition, it actually becomes the drawer box storage system now, the hobby's only complete organizational system for comics. These upright dividers are just fantastic. I've finally got them all into all my boxes now, and this has just totally changed the way I sort my comics, totally changed the way I go back to revisit and reread comics. I've actually started going through my collection and started making divisions where there's comics that I'd like to reread. As I gradually reread them, I put them in a special section so I could sort them back into my collection. It's really nice because it's enabled me to, within a single drawer, to make up multiple spaces for me to kind of play around with reread books that I need to alphabetize, and it keeps everything in the boxes. I used to keep stacks of comics on top of my drawer boxes that I was ready to kind of sort into my collection because I didn't have a chance to get to them yet, and this has enabled me to leave spaces for that so I can gradually keep them safe and clean and perfectly stacked inside the drawer boxes. And it really is, in this day and age, I love to keep my comics pristine, but I am a comic reader as well. So I want them nice and looking neat, but I want them accessible so I can grab them, reread them as necessary, but then try to keep them in that mint condition that we're all looking for. And these upright dividers are absolutely excellent. I've been a big fan. You've heard me on the show casually mention drawer boxes really since very early on into the show. I heard about them on Comic Geek Speak. I started to become a big fan of them myself, and I can't rave these boxes enough. If you aren't currently using drawer boxes as a way to access your collection, especially if you have stacked long boxes, and we all get to that point where our collection gets to be so big that it's really tough to get to that stuff, those books that we have in the bottom box, especially if you got, them piled up 5 or 6 high. It's really hard to get to those because then you got to lug all the boxes all the way down, and those long boxes get really heavy. Drawer boxes, no more doing that. Once they're stacked up nice and neat, these drawer boxes get locked together. It makes a wonderful, nice, beautiful stacked collection. It keeps your books pristine, but great for rereading. Be able to pull books out. You want to look at covers, you can go ahead and do that. You want to just pull them out, look at the artwork. You can do that nice and easily. I actually have a couple sections now of older material that I really want to reread this summer, and I've started organizing things with, kind of prioritizing books that I want to reread again into special stacks with the dividers as well. And it's great because I can leave the books a little bit looser in there now to leave room to add new titles, because these keep everything all standing straight up, nice and tall, with gaps available in there that you can stick new books in and just really keep everything nice and organized to your own tastes. They're so easy to use and insert. If you have older drawer boxes, I recommend getting the upgrades. Upgrades are real easy to put in. You grab them, it takes a matter of seconds to put those in, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful system. I love the fact that they support those of us that have been longtime users of drawer boxes. So that's collectiondrawer.com. Let them know that Raging Bullets sent you if you end up using it. Think about getting together with some friends. If you got some friends in the area that are comic fans, one or two, whatever, and if you want to just try out drawer boxes, you can get a nice collection going of them and really save some money on shipping by grouping your order together and getting a better deal on those drawer boxes as well, because they do offer discounts on larger orders. So it's kind of a great way to kind of group together and save some money for yourselves as well. So thanks again for sponsoring us, collectiondrawer.com. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you could better enjoy the show.
It was funny. I was on the Book Cave for a Star Trek episode. And if you haven't checked it out, it's the Book Cave podcast. It's episode 23, which there'll be a link to right in the show notes. So we did an in-depth discussion on the new Star Trek movie, which isn't something that we would do on Raging Bullets, but he had me do the spoiler warning, and I sounded like a dork because I can't do you. It's funny when you and I make fun of each other. I could do it where I was making fun of you, but I was actually trying to do it the way you would do it. And I flubbed it. So you can hear me flub it on there, so I apologize to Rick. But the discussion, we really went in depth on the Star Trek movie, and I really enjoyed the film. You haven't seen it yet, have you?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
We got to make some time to go see that, because I would love to see the film again. I've seen it twice already, and I really enjoyed it. So that's episode 23 of the Book Cave podcast, where I'm on Rick Croxton's show talking Star Trek. It's interesting, just a different dynamic to talk about Star Trek. But Jim, without further ado, let's jump right into Oracle.
Nothing like the handy-dandy electro claw for carving through metal doors.
Joining us for this segment is friend of the show, from the comic book Witch Hunter, the writer, Vin Ferrante. And Vin, thank you for joining us on Raging Bullets.
Oh, it's an honor. I've been listening to the show for a long time, so it's just fun to actually be a part of it.
And we'd planned to get together and do a segment in New York, but with all the craziness of New York,
yeah.
in a good way, New York was crazy. But thank you for your patience, because this has been a long time in coming.
Oh, sure. I was actually blown away too with just the amount of fun and interesting and really necessary stuff for everybody to see. So I'm glad that everybody got so much out of it. It was cool. It was cool actually just meeting you guys there.
It was funny. This show, I don't know what it was. There seemed to be more just interactivity between people from different areas. Our podcast arena got a ton of traffic.
It was really designed well. I really respect what they do with the New York Comic Con, like how they do the layout where they'll put the video game stuff peppered throughout, and they'll sort of like break stuff up so that you get a sort of smattering of everything as you wind your way through the show. And they're just very good about sort of structuring something that's very fun but at the same time useful if you're a professional. So really everybody gets a lot out of it. I'm just very impressed. So I already reserved the same booth for the 2010 show. So I just really think they do a great job.
The last two in particular, with the way that they've finally got that large floor space there, I really felt like nothing felt isolated.
No, and it couldn't. It's something that big. You could actually feel like you could get lost, but they actually put a lot of time into it, and their reps are always running all over the place, making sure that everything is kind of like running smooth. So it's just, I think they really took a lot of time to plan it, and it's definitely paying off. I like the fact that they give you the podcast arena, and that they make it such kind of like a home base for people that want to kind of reach out and network about comics. I think it's fantastic.
Well, you're joining us today. We're going to start talking about Oracle 1 through 3, and then we're going to wrap up. I want to talk about Witch Hunter, because we got an opportunity to read the first couple issues of Witch Hunter, and I really want to talk about some of the elements that we found interesting from that particular book as well. So.
Oh, cool, great.
Well, our next review will be Oracle the Cure. Writer is Kevin Van Hook, pencils by Julian Lopez and Fernando Passanera, inks of the first issue.
Passarin.
Passarin?
Yeah.
Excuse
You're adding
me.
all kinds of extra letters.
Well, I do apologize for the insult. Fernando Passeron. Inks for the first issue were by Bit and Hi-Fi's David Bryant. Inks for the second and third issue were by Bit and Norm Rapmund. Colors by Hi-Fi, letterer Steve Wands, assistant editor Harvey Richards, and editor Michael Siglang. With cover by...
Good luck.
I'm going to say Julianne Marsh.
Yes.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, it was a beautiful...
Okay, yeah, that name sounds familiar. Yeah, I had no idea they did the covers.
It's
a
spelled
good-looking cover.
It's spelled Guillem, and Marsh for the last name. If I butchered the name, I do apologize. And I got to agree with you how cool these covers were.
All three of them were excellent.
All three of them. And the thing I liked about the covers were not hidden, but just little side things off the side. Because you get a really cool look of Barbara on the cover, which, is always a good thing. But then on the sides, like the first issue, you have like the TV monitors that have images of, Commissioner Gordon. You have the news report of a dead hacker that we later learn on what happens in the issue. Then even the image of the dead hacker. And the second one, if you look into Oracle's glasses, the reflection shows the virtual reality version of the calculator in there. So it's like these extra little stuff in there that just really makes, kind of the artwork pop. And, when I looked at it initially, I was like, oh, that's a really nice looking Barbara. And then you look a second time and you get a little bit deeper behind the scenes. It's even a little bit more.
Yeah, I like the fact that it moves kind of like in a progression. Like if you put three together, it actually does seem like, okay, she sees something coming, and then all of a sudden she gets a glimpse of what it is, and now the third one, she's been affected by it. So I actually thought that they flowed together really well, too.
She's also very powerful in all three. Even in the one where, I know what you're talking about, issue 3, it looks like she's been affected by it, but in all of them, you still feel like, this is a girl who's in a wheelchair. But in every one, there's something very commanding. There's something very powerful. Like right from issue 1, you see her there. She looks very strong. There's something about her that she looks like the iconic hero. And it's funny how important Oracle has become to me. I've been very torn over, DC's been doing these teases of, maybe she'll be Batgirl again. Maybe she won't. I don't, and I'm actually, this series even more convinced me that you need to keep her as Oracle because she was brilliant in this.
Amen. I completely agree.
Yeah. Vin, how do you feel? Do you feel like how would you feel if she went back to being Batgirl versus Oracle? I'm so torn over this.
I was torn for a while, and I was giving it a lot of thought, especially because I knew that we'd be talking about it. And I don't know. I think that they're gonna pull a fast one and kind of give us both things, but at the same time, neither. Like I have a feeling that she's still going to, be Oracle in a sense of using the the knowledge that she's gained since she was in the wheelchair. But at the same time, I think that she might want to go back and get the adventure because it seemed like they were really bringing to light throughout the series the fact that even though she came to terms with who she was and she more than made the best of it, she still misses that, first of all, the physical sensation, how it limits her personal life, and I think partially like the adventure and what she can do, what good she could do. Because, she kept saying about, sometimes they still hurt, and, and about how they still show her being physical, and, even getting in and out of the tub, it seemed to make me feel like she's ready to kind of like move on, but at the same time, she's not going to leave behind what she's gotten out of this growth. So, I don't know. I think they're going to surprise us, definitely.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind seeing it.
And I'm with you in the sense I'm still torn because I would be very happy if they kept her in the wheelchair. But then there's another part of me that I kind of want to see her walk again, too. I don't know. Every time I see something really cool with her as Oracle as we see her now, I find myself saying, I don't know. They have to be very careful in how they do it.
See, this series for me just really locked into place how I want Barbara. I really, I want her in the chair. Yeah, in a way, I'd hate to see someone permanently disabled for the rest of their life, but there's just something about Barbara Gordon in the chair. There's something about her as Oracle in this role, because there's so much baggage she has yet to deal with. And we see glimpses of this throughout these issues that, she's got this strong character. Yeah, she's going to keep fighting on. Yeah, she's like taken adversity and made it her strength, but there are still the weaknesses there. There's still chinks in the armor, and she still has to confront those. And I want to see that growth. I want to see that development, and I want to see Oracle. I don't want to see her as Batgirl ever again.
Did you ever read her as Batgirl?
See, that's the thing. I never have.
See, and that's I do think that is a distinction here. I read her as Batgirl. If you haven't read the Batgirl, I'll give you a quick primer book for her that's wonderful. Either Showcase Batgirl, which is out right now, or Batgirl Year One, I think is even more. It's kind of like a modern retelling of her as Batgirl, which shows how she would work a little bit more today. And the adventure aspect that Vin was talking about just now, for me, really comes to life in that book. And I think it's why I'm so torn. I'm not disagreeing with you. Like, what you're saying, I think, is spot on, and I agree with you. So amen to all of that, and that's why I'm torn. But then there's that part of me that's like, but she was darn cool as Batgirl. Vin, what's your experience?
Well, I mean, I think this was something that maybe you had said, Jim, like a while back, that, you know, it's great to have somebody who we see overcoming time and again, you know, the disability, but wouldn't it be also kind of cool to show somebody that it would be an inspiration to say, yeah, I was able to move past it, and that would also be like an inspiration to people who are in situations like that, whether they're physical or sort of mental handicaps that they have, that they're able to, or psychological, that they can move past it. And it would be kind of cool if she could, I guess, get out of it, but at the same time still have some aspect of what she had while she was confined to the chair, like not totally abandoned, you know, that aspect of her. You know, I'd like to see her get out, but at the same time, I'd like to sort of, you know, keep what made her Oracle. And it's, I guess I'm leaning more towards I want her out. Really having a tough time.
That in Birds of Prey, they did that story with Brainiac, where there was that hint that she started getting feeling in her toes again. And so, I mean, there has been something set into play previously in her continuity that it's distinctly possible, aside from even just this arc that we're dealing with at the moment, that it is possible that she might get. I don't know. It's probably one of them. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
No, I was just kind of thinking, like, I don't want to, like, you know, get to it before we get to it, but something that happens in the third one kind of gives me kind of like an indication, like, okay, we're going to have still some connection to the disability, but at the same time, it sort of makes me feel like they're going to take us on to like another level, and that's at the end of the third one. So I mean, I'll get to it, but that's like part of my like my feeling about the whole thing is actually I think they show it in that part.
Here's the thing with me and the whole disability thing. Yeah, if they were to have her, you know, be able to walk again, I would be happy for her, because, you know, I now look at her as I would look at a friend. So I'd be glad that she get this back, but she doesn't need to get it back from me. And I know we're all in agreement on that factor, that she doesn't really need to walk. She is a cool superhero as Oracle, as she is in the chair. So this is something that they don't need to do. If they did it, okay, but as I don't want to see us lose Oracle. And for me, Barbara Gordon is Oracle. I like the way she approaches stuff, the way she, you know, looks at the problem, she tackles it, and it's, you know, if somebody else were to take on the role of Oracle, or even try to do what she does, it wouldn't be the same thing. You know, there is only one Oracle, and that's what I personally don't want to lose. Whether she has to be in the chair or she's sitting in the chair because she's sitting behind a computer, either case would be good for me. But there is something about her that it needs to remain.
I agree. I think that they should always be that aspect of her in front of the computer type of thing. So I think that should always stay the same.
I think we get to issue. I think maybe we put a little bit of the cart before the horse here, because I think when we get to issue 3, it'll be interesting to speculate what the three of us individually think what is happening here, where this is going to go, because there's obviously this is leading into a brand new Batgirl mini. Is it a mini series?
I think it's a monthly. I thought it was a monthly series.
I thought they said it was a mini series for right now.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But well, let's start off with the series. We're going to do kind of like a quick whatnot through the issues. You know, and we'll get to that third one, and we'll really hammer out the third one, because I know about you guys. I got tons of just theories swirling around inside my head that may make you guys numb. I'm not sure yet.
Can we?
Me too.
Can we talk about the artwork, though? Because one of the things that most impressed me when I opened up issue 1, you get this shot of her apartment building, And what I loved about it wasn't isolated to just her floor. Below each level, you get to see the electrical bill issue down below, but that's all coming out of what she's doing up there as well. And it would be, with what she does, that would generate or need to generate a ton of electrical power.
But
Oh, yeah.
But not only she needs a ton of power, she needs consistent power.
Right.
And that's the thing I loved about her, because she's moved back to Gotham, and one of the first things she does is she's tears open the wall. She's re-stripping down the electrical, just making sure she has a consistent power base. Of course, while she's doing this, the rest of the building is losing power, gaining power, and those people even are kind of like used to it. You think about Gotham's, the current state that Gotham's in. It's a war zone. It's a lot of anarchy and chaos going on. So losing power would kind of be, oh, here we go again. Oh, okay, it's back. Oh, what's going on here? So I like that whole, we're already page 1, page 2 of the issue, and we're already bringing the element of Gotham City as a character itself into this series. And periodically, when she leaves Gotham and comes back to Gotham, Gotham is always a part of the series, always a part of the story. And that, for me, is a cool element of any Gotham tale.
It's kind of a nice twist, too, though. When we last left her, when she was in that Silicon Valley kind of area, she had this very high-tech structure that they were working out of. Now she's back in Gotham, and tiny details, when we see her, like, working, like you said, ripping open the wall. I love the art details here, because in the background you see wallpaper that's coming off. You see cracks in the ceiling. You see even the doorway, or by the light switch, the doorway, you can see little cracks around it. This is not your high-end apartment. This is a structure that shows age. That's probably a studio level apartment. She probably took out a whole floor and things like that for purposes of settling in Gotham, probably very quickly. But I do like the fact that this isn't as clean of a place as she was in previously. Which is very fitting to the new environment. It was a tiny art detail that just showed that she does not have access to the same. She had secret passages in her old place. I mean,
yeah. And this place seems like maybe it's had a lot of different lives to it. Like if you notice on the medicine cabinet in the bathroom, it's got like a red cross on it, which is almost like something that you might find in like an institutional type of place. And then you have the sink, which looks to me like it could have been in a hotel, So it's kind of interesting that, of course, she would pick something like this, which is not going to be high profile, where if the power fluctuates, whatever, like you were saying, it's somewhere that she can operate. But it's just interesting that they show that the building almost has as much history as she does. One of the things that really struck me about it is that they're showing that, she's back in Gotham. He mentions at one point during the issue that, you're going to be going back to the library, she's been Oracle, she's been Batgirl. I mean, wherever they go with this, I mean, this character itself could have so many different facets to her story. So that to me just makes her just one of the more interesting characters that I've ever read.
When you touched on the medicine cabinet too, one other thing that the shower area is open and pretty much so set up for somebody in a wheelchair. Not perfectly and all that, but I'm wondering if maybe that was a reason why she chose the apartment that she did.
Right.
Because it would already have been some form of medical facility, or maybe the previous tenants or the previous owners. It could have been anything from old people who needed, that kind of medical assistance for bathing or things like that. You're right. So there is a history here that for some reason it could have been elderly who needed special extended care. It could have been another person and another medical patient similar to her. Mm-hmm. I liked those details. There's one little art piece I want to talk about, too, on that same page you're talking about. The close-up shot of her face where she's thinking.
I love that. I was looking at that this morning.
Yeah. I mean, the artwork in this was really something that I loved the story, and the story drew me in immediately. But this was another very pleasing presentation of artwork for me, because you can tell a lot about mood and tone from the face. And her relationship with her father has always been something in the comics that I've loved. I love the fact that he leaves this message, he's going to be there in 20 minutes. She's got to scramble for a number of reasons. She doesn't want her dad walking into this.
Yeah, right. Obviously, yeah, that's true.
So, she's trying to keep a secret here. I think at this stage, it's pretty clear Dad knows she's up to something, but I don't think Dad knows the entire scale.
There's no way Dad knows she's Oracle, but he knows there's something going on.
He's too smart.
Yeah, he's too good of a detective not to be able to pick up something. Now, that's the story I would love to see, that he either knew all along or he has an idea or something. That's what I want to find.
They have hinted at that in the comics before, too, and it is almost like a game that they play. Like, you would imagine that a father in this particular position would... He's too good a cop not to know.
Yeah.
At least something's going on. So it is kind of a game between the two. It's kind of a game of respect. I'm sure he can't have missed the clues that have been around him. You can't have that kind of relationship and not notice it. But I do think, she would still, at this stage, be hiding everything and all that. And I like that. I like that little aspect of their relationship, the game.
Yeah.
That I think that they have to be playing with each other. It's not out in your face. It's something that's kind of hidden in the background. You can kind of pick up on it. But the artwork in this it's really, really very pleasing to me. I really enjoyed that aspect of this. And it took more of a front end to this than I expected.
Yeah. And this, the dinner, we're talking just the relationship between the Commissioner Gordon and Barbara. It was just, I loved just the way you get kind of to see the human side of both of them. One, he knows his daughter so well that he pushes back the reservation an hour, but tells her, just, to pad it, to give them extra time. This way we're only a couple minutes late as opposed to an hour late. So, and then just, Barbara, just as she's, just the banter, the talking back and forth between the two of them, and then even when they're at dinner and her mind's on, what's going on. It was just one of those things where you're opened up and you're led into who they are, and you see that human side of the characters. And I don't know, I like that.
Yeah, she really has a good supporting cast. I mean, to have somebody like, Commissioner Gordon, where, again, I think it is a game, not just between her and her father, but between them and the readers, because they don't want to come out now and say, yeah, he knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, he knows his daughter is Batgirl. So you want to keep that guessing game just to keep it fun. From a character perspective, he doesn't have to necessarily worry about her as much, in the forefront of his mind, because he's not going there. He's respecting that boundary. And it sort of allows for like a lot of interesting moments like this. I mean, the artwork itself, that face reminded me of like something that Kevin Maguire would do, because that was one of the best aspects of what he would do, is that he would carry so much in the art, and a lot of times you don't get this type of specific expression. And it's great when the art can carry it through, and you don't have to rely on the words as much, where the writer can just say, I want her looking like she's like blowing the hair out of her face type of thing. So it's really, you really get a lot with the relationships between both with the two of them and also her with herself, all that she's thinking about and what she's going through throughout the issue, that, she's trying to put who she is in perspective at this point. So, yeah, I mean, that'll really hit home with me.
It's funny, there's a warmth on Jim Gordon's face, too. Listen, it's nice to know some things never change. If you look at his face in there, you see a very stern Jim Gordon a lot of times in comics, or, even a very thoughtful Jim Gordon, where he's concentrating on dire events that are happening around him in Gotham. It is nice to get these moments where you get to see him as a father, just to see another side of him as well. I think it is something that's really important about the history of these characters, is that we've seen them in a variety of different ways, and they feel more real because of it. It's not always when Gotham's falling apart that we see Jim Gordon. We've got to see that there is a man outside of the police commissioner that he is. I think that's where we as readers do connect with them too. And you're right, it is because we feel like we're on some level part of their little game, but they never come out and spell out the game to us.
Right, which is what I think is really just separates really, really good storytelling from maybe something that is, it's okay, but they really take it to the next level, where this has been building for time. There have been many people that have worked on these stories, but they've really, established and gelled between everybody that, this is what we want to convey. And I think that just the past few years, I think they've been really hitting it more than ever. And just these little moments, like you were talking about when he meets her for dinner, she's like, Dad, if you're too busy. He's like, no, they know where to reach me. So it was just really nice, to not always see him on the roof, and I remember I heard you say on the show last week, he's thrown the cigarettes away. So he's saying, you know what, I'm getting serious about this. You're getting to see a lot of sides to these characters and a lot of nuances, not just broad strokes with them. And it's just fantastic. I like the fact that Dick left a message on her phone in the beginning, so you get to see him like right from page one, even though he's not there. That you can see that his presence is there. He's like, I know you're going through a lot right now, and I just want to let you know I'm here if you need me. I thought that was really cool.
It's same thing with those messages from Dinah as well. It's good to see that the cast that we know before is connected to her is still connected. And so, gives you hope that in the future she will be reconnected back with them again.
It fits too because Barbara did reach out to Dinah multiple times to try and contact her in previous stories. So, we've seen kind of Barbara in that spot. So I was glad to see Dinah respond back, because their relationship is so close that you would imagine this character would eventually do that. There was a tiny little detail, too, for me as a reader, having read the last, stories that we've seen with Barbara. It was good to see that little, it's a tiny little thing. It mattered to me.
See what this thing is, how Dinah is angry with Ollie and Hal about them starting up their own league. It would be kind of cool if this did become a series, to actually have Dinah show up at Barbara's apartment and say, what's going on, Dinah? She's like, I don't know. Just this thing with me and Ollie. You want to talk about it? And just be able to advance their relationship even more. Like now, they're not in Birds of Prey anymore, but at the same time, they're reconnecting in a different way, and with all the superhero stuff that's going on around them, I just think it would be kind of cool to sort of, explore like a new dynamic with like a new supporting cast for her, but like bringing in selected people from the past. And I just think that there's a lot there, and that they could revisit old relationships in new ways. And I'm just looking forward to it.
You know what I like they did recently, and was it Supergirl, Jim? It was one of the books they referenced the Olympian, what's going on in Wonder Woman, in a newscast.
Yeah, it was
that
Supergirl. Yeah.
I like that. It was, Wonder Woman's universe and Superman's universe, they've got two very different stories going on at the moment, but there was like a quick television reference to the Olympian from the story that's going on in Wonder Woman right now. It's kind of what you're talking about here, Vin, except there's obviously a more direct relationship between these two characters. I do like that. I'm with you. I would like to see eventually that, because I liked how Birds of Prey ended with the two of them back together again to conclude that. And that relationship is something that's very important between the two of them. And we're at Gotham. They're ready to go to their dinner.
Right.
We do have this wonderful shot of Gotham City here, which I personally find it's another shot of throughout this whole thing. I literally went back through when you were talking about how many times you've reread it, Vin. I went through this book, and I went through at least twice each issue just looking at the art. That's not including my rereads, but
one of the things that really got me, and from the beginning, we start seeing how Wendy's in a coma, where she got there from Teen Titans, with Wonder Dog eating Marvin and attacking her. Then you got the Ares half son, whatever he was, actually finishing her off, and she's sitting there in this coma, and we start seeing Calculator as the concerned father, and I like seeing this about him, seeing him, actually, he kind of has some noble intentions. Now, the path that he's going to go about to get these noble intentions, we know are completely evil and wrong. He's willing to kill, destroy, and who knows what'll happen after he saves his daughter. Because if his plan to recreate the anti-life equation, succeeds and heals her, who knows what he's going to do then with that power that he has. So I like the fact that we have this kind of, you feel for the guy, but he's a bad guy. So and throughout this entire series, he has had noble intentions, kind of, but he also has the underlining evil intentions that he's going to use this with. And just seeing him with his daughter, seeing them bring in the whole anti-life equation that came from Final Crisis and mentioning it and bringing it back to the surface was a really cool way of using the character.
Well, dude's planning to kill the doctor even if he saves the daughter.
Right.
Because when he's planning on it, he's like, a doctor would be nothing. And, he's basically rationalizing that he needs to keep the doctor alive for now because he may very well be the one that saves her. But he's planning his death after that.
Very handedly, too. He's like, I can kill him later. It's not a big deal.
A doctor would be nothing. I've tangled with Darkseid and lived to tell about it. I mean...
Yeah, he's insane. Like he's very haphazard and all. He's like, that's nothing. I've done Darkseid. I can do this guy with no problem.
Yeah, it's so it's the question is though. I always wonder because how far would a parent go to save the child? Any parent out there, you ask them, if you had to kill somebody to save the life of your child, would you? 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to hear them say yes. There's a couple of people who say, I can't take a life no matter what. And, but so you have that side, but then you twist it because it is the calculator. He is a twisted individual. So it was just that,
Well, it's almost like he's going to kill him for saving the daughter.
Right. Well, or he's going to kill anybody, just because he needs to. But
there is no need there. Like the killing of the doctor, that's the twist of the whole thing. He is going to kill the doctor regardless. It's not a need thing. It's a who
the doctor was
thing.
Because he insulted the calculator.
Yeah,
because he made some snarmy comment. Right. That's the sole reason he's going to kill the doctor. There's nothing, but he's not going to kill him now because who knows? Maybe the guy may help out in the end. But once everything is said and done, I'm going to go back and kill him because of what he said about me.
Right.
So that's the evil side of him coming out. And then, but on top of that, you have this noble intention of where he wants to save his daughter's life, which I thought was a cool contrast. And then you go to the dinner with Barbara Gordon and her father, and you see this other father-daughter relationship that, was fleshed out wonderfully, that we know they have this strong rapport. So you have, on both sides of this, you have the two father-daughter relationships.
And you do show that a lot of this is due to the calculator's upbringing. Obviously, this guy was picked on like crazy in his childhood. And this is him lashing back. You can't make him look stupid. Anybody that would insult him or make him look bad in front of others deserves to die. And maybe that is the need. That goes back to need again. They need to die because they insulted him. Yeah. And that's, he needs to have power in his world. And this is his way of being empowered. So a very strange thing.
Yeah, and I do like how just, you see Barbara just so in depth in what she's thinking. And there's got to be about 1,000 things going through her head as she's doing this, to the point where he's like, so how's your pasta? Oh, it's good. Well, you had steak for dinner. He's like, when you're ready. And even the dad, he's not upset by this. He knows there's a lot of stuff going through his daughter's mind. He's like, hey, when, we'll do this again. Don't worry, and it's just.
But he knows she needs time and space right now, and he's willing to give it. Because not a lot of people are patient enough to do that. I know myself, like if I notice, I'll go with my wife as a great example. If I notice that she's in pain or troubled or something's on her mind, it's very hard for me to be patient enough to pull back and give her space sometimes. I want to help. We want to fix it. So I really did like, it's an interesting message here that sometimes you need to know when to respect those boundaries and let that person have that space. It's a good life lesson. But it shows the kind of guy that Jim Gordon is, and that he cares about his daughter enough to put her ahead of his own need to understand what's going on with her. Because it's not about him there, it's about her. And it is a message we can all take away from it. I connected with that on a personal level. It's very cool.
And if you think about it, what did Dick do? He did the exact same thing. He called, he left the message telling her, hey, I'm thinking about you. If you need me, give me a call. That type of, and I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. Because I always want to see those two together. So, the fact that he would do something very similar to what the father was doing gave me hope, even though I doubt we're ever going to see it. But still, a guy can dream. Because, I don't know, I always wanted to see those two together.
You really don't think that you'd see them together?
I don't. And the only reason why I don't think I'll see them together is because it's something that I really, really want.
But we already have seen them together.
We've seen them together, and then they part together. I mean, together as well, you know me. I want to see superheroes get a little bit older. I want to see those two get married, have little kids, have them, maybe possibly grow up to wear the mantle, or
Yeah, but I guess the question is this is where it becomes a tricky thing in comics.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is how long are you going to read issues about them having kids and what happens during that time to keep the action going. It becomes an interesting conundrum as far as, do you then flash forward a number of years? Because there's those years in between them raising kids. Do you then put Barbara on the shelf and have her raising kids?
If she's Oracle, she doesn't have to be on the shelf. She could sit there at the computer with the kids sitting in the crib right behind. Mm-hmm. And you could even have the little thing where she zips back, throws a bottle in, comes back, and, sorry, I had to burp Junior.
here's the problem. They tried something like that recently in Flash.
Yeah, I know.
And I liked it, but
I know, and that's why I know I'm never going to get...
I liked it, though. That's part of the problem. I see what you're saying, and as you're saying it, I'm like, oh, wow, that's really cool, but it doesn't typically, I think it washes with a certain number of fans, but then you're going to have a whole other group that it doesn't wash with.
See, I am a soap opera fan. I don't currently watch any soaps, but I liked the serialization of the soap operas. But I also like seeing the kids get older.
I'm a soap opera fan, but I don't.
I'm not currently watching
soaps.
it. Right? I know. It's weird. I admit it, but I do like the concept behind it because one of my favorite was Santa Barbara, which went off the air.
I'm a comic fan, but I don't read them.
Well, hold on. Let me explain.
I know.
My favorite was Santa Barbara, which went off the air, and that kind of angered me. So then I got into All My Children because a couple of these Santa Barbara people were in All My Children, and then one by one, people that I liked in All My Children were getting replaced by other people, and it started it was what I was saying. I was like, I gotta step away from this because I'm getting too addicted, and I realized I was getting too addicted to soaps, and so I just had to step away.
So you don't watch them anymore because you like them too much?
Exactly. I'm an addict when it comes to stuff like that, where I would get, it's like the daily fix of the show, where you see these characters go on, and it just,
where's your point with comics where you get too addicted?
Well, see, I already know.
Hours of this isn't.
Hold on, see, I already know. I'm just turning off that little voice that's telling me to walk away. I've surpassed the addiction point where I would normally should have walked away from this, but I've just turned off that little voice and I'm continuing on with my addiction. I just feed it more and more. So, this is one day just going to completely crumble down on top of me and just absolutely destroy me. I know this, I accept it,
like
and I welcome it.
You're like a powder keg.
Oh, yeah.
This is why I can do this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I love the serials too. I totally know where he's coming from. And I used to watch. My mom took me to the set of All My Children when I was like 10 years old. So I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then I started watching. Passions when it was on because I'm like, there's vampires and succubi and all this other stuff. I said I can watch this every day. This would be great.
And I actually agree with both of you. I would have no trouble reading a series that explored that. I think that would be very cool. I think you almost need to do that as like what they did with an Elseworlds concept, though. You need to create a series that specifically does that and like can pull in any hero that they want to and just kind of can follow it. I don't think you can do it in the main books to that level. I don't know. I mean, I think good writers could probably get away with it. It's just it's a very tricky balance you have to keep in comics.
The thing is, with generationally, you're going to always want people to come back and see the same familiar things. So it's like a fine line to walk between things becoming stagnant and things changing enough, but still you go back and those characters are who you know them to be. So it's it's kind of like tricky to are you going to change this? Are you going to change this property? Or are you going to keep it relatively the same? Like with Superman or with anything like that. I mean, the biggest thing they did was marrying him to Lois, but that was huge. So now it's like a totally different dynamic, and they've gone there now. But now people are going to expect that that's the same every time they go back. So it's you kind of have to decide, do we want to change this property or do we want to keep it the same 20 years from now, or we're going to have another crisis where, we need to, reset everything so that we can introduce new fans to it. So I guess it's kind of like a, case-by-case basis type of thing.
Oracle's a great example, though, for progression. Because if you figure about it, in Killing Joke, she was shot, and they didn't magically wave the magic wand and she's Batgirl again. Now, the interesting part is at this point, she's been Oracle for so long that you could conceivably take another leap and let her walk again. You could do that.
It has been that long. Yeah, that's true. And but like you guys said, not totally just discard where she's come from. This is something that has shaped her life. This has made her who she is. So we want to keep elements of that and very big elements of that there, but also show, hey, I can grow beyond this in this respect, and at the same time bring all those fans along. You have the original ones who know Batgirl. You have the ones that either came to know her as Oracle or were introduced to her that way. You want to bring all those people along and still make a guess, this is somebody I recognize. And then in turns for the new people, hey, I'm picking this up for the first time. Well, she's had this great history. What's she going to do now? And then they feel like they get it on the ground level and nobody's alienated. I haven't seen Star Trek yet, but I understand that maybe just thematically, maybe if one of you guys have seen it, you can say, have they done something on a similar basis where it's the same type of thing, that they haven't alienated old fans, but they've brought in new ones at the same time. Maybe they can do that with this too.
Yeah, it's honestly, I loved Star Trek, so this isn't a knock on Star Trek. I wouldn't want to see them do a Star Trek here because if to do that, it would basically be taking the magic wand, and she'd be Batgirl again, and Oracle wouldn't exist. Would be probably the closest comparison would be in that case.
I see.
And I don't want to say too much on that end for people who haven't seen it, but I mean that would be the closest comparison to that. In this case, I definitely I either want to see her continue to progress as Oracle, where we see an evolution of her as Oracle, or if they do go to a route where somehow she becomes a Batgirl again, you see that there is a progression where we see that Oracle was there, and being Oracle did matter to that character. And we see a different Batgirl because of what she went through as Oracle. So I think there's two very different possible paths they could go with this, and I think both of them are equally valid, depending on what they do storytelling wise with the character. So it is an interesting discussion point to see where they're going to go with her.
Now, just showing her training and her beating on the the statue, I don't even know what you see it in every martial art movie. It's got the little staff, it's got the offshoots, and you hit them with your arms, and you boom, 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 practice your strikes. Just showing her working.
It's the big wooden whatnot.
Yeah, the big wooden whatnot.
I think that's what they call it. I think it's the Whatnot 3000, actually.
Yeah. Because there's many a time you just want to just beat the tar out of it.
I know.
Regulation haircuts and little voices in his head. I'll beat it out of you.
She seems really PO'd in that second panel. I mean, when she's saying in the first panel they hurt sometimes, and then the second one her eyes roll wide. She's got this grimace on her face, and she really cracked it. I mean, again, I think this is a strong point to the art and the story working perfectly hand in hand. It's like when you think something and it really kind of like makes you angry, and the next thing you do is maybe you slam your hand on the table. You obviously know where that hand slamming came from. She goes, they hurt sometimes and it's cracked, and then in the next one, it's like phantom pain, but she's not really buying it. It seems because she hits the thing even harder the next time. So she's got something that is bothering her, and we know what it is. And I think we're it's not spelled out for us because I think it's more powerful because without her having to spell it out. Like I have things that are really, really bothering me, and I really don't know where I want to go with this necessarily. So I thought that was great.
I think one of the other things too is it shows that not only what's currently bothering her now, but this is here because she had to come up with a way to deal with where she's currently at and the position she's currently in. Throughout years. I mean, what the Joker did to her in that moment was a violation on so many levels. It was physical. It was emotional. I mean, it was really, it changed her entire life and took away from her basically her identity, and she had to craft a new one. So, I mean, that would be something that, let's take the Joker bit out of it. Losing your ability to walk in general would be something that you'd I would assume there would be elements of you that would never get over it. You would see things you would want to do that you can't do. I always find it inspirational when we see people in wheelchairs and things like that who, I saw a video with my students where they showed, it was Bill Nye the Science Guy one, where people in wheelchairs have now crafted these custom ways to water ski and custom ways to go snowboarding and custom ways where they're wheelchairs, they're new versions of wheelchairs that allow them to do this. They go through races, and it changed their whole life. It's they've got their own triathlon style things that they do that it basically lets them be as athletic as they would have been prior to losing their ability to walk, or maybe if they've never had the ability to walk, it enables them to do all the things they see everybody else doing in a unique way. And it is inspirational to see people overcome those obstacles and live life on a level. I was watching them, I'm like, they're doing more than I do. I mean, way more than I do. I mean, these are hardcore people, the same people that you see in these extreme sports doing all these crazy things. I'm like, they're doing that same stuff out there, and that is so impressive to me that they can take it to the same edge that a person who can walk on their two legs can. So it was that type of stuff to me. I'm like, oh, they're way beyond me. And watch out, because they could beat the tar out of me. I like that, though. I mean, it's nice to see that there's nothing that really that needs to limit you from doing anything that you want to do if you can be clever and creative. It is something about the human spirit that people
Right.
can strive beyond almost anything if they want to, and find creative ways to do something in a unique way. And that's her story.
Yeah, that's who she is. I mean, that's who she's become. I mean, in many ways, it took a lot away, but I think it gave back, so much more. I mean, obviously the tragedy is horrible, but I mean, what she's become as a result of it, she's become more than she might ever have been. So, where she can go from this point, it's totally open-ended. I mean, I like that she's thinking about the Joker in there, and I just think it's funny that, that all of this stuff is coming up like right before, this event, whatever it is that's going to happen to her. It just kind of makes me feel it's like, what has been prompting this, recently where it's starting to well up so much, because she seems like she's really going through, one of those occasional periods that even people who are very, grounded and come to terms with things, that she's revisiting everything all over again on a very surface level, and it's really just starting in ways to almost deconstruct her, because she's like, look at what this has done to me, and look what I've become as a result of it. It's like, who am I, and who am I going to become? So it's interesting that I'm wondering if the catalysts that are in her mind are going to affect physically what happens to her later, based on stuff that we see later on, because it just seems like there is a certain amount of intention. There's a certain amount of intent. Like in magic, you do that. If you empower something, or if you want to protect your home, you can charge stones with intent and put them at the various openings to your house, like the various windows and stuff like that. It almost maybe in a way that with the anti-life equation, maybe somehow because of her connection to it, she's charging her intent. What does she want? And it seems that something. I mean, I just think that part of her thoughts are definitely acting as catalysts for the action.
I think with what happened with Birds of Prey, this was this thing that she crafted for so long and had this perfect squad. And then, Dinah had to leave and she had to craft a squad again. And, we saw in that book that she slowly got to this point. I mean, this was something that we saw her, traveling towards in Birds of Prey. Towards the end, this darkness, this dark side of her. And I do like that this is something, though, that in her life, I think we all hit those periods of ups and downs. And when we're at our lowest, we go to dark places. And I think everybody's been there. You're at your highest, you go to your highest places. And when you're darkest, you go to your lowest places. And you think things that you wouldn't naturally do. But your head goes there. And I like how she talks about that when she talks about the Joker, that she, wished, at her darkest, she actually wished that he succeeded in killing her. And,
yeah.
and you never get the impression that she really means that, or that she actually really felt that way. But there is that moment where we all delve down to the lowest low, where you'll think things that, that doesn't mean that that's really what you want, or that your intention's really there. But I liked that aspect of her. She's very human in these moments. And, I think we all have gone through phases where people will say, geez, there's something going on with you, or what is it that you're, and you can't always put a finger on it yet. Even. And I think that's a real aspect of this, that I don't feel as we as the readers can totally put a finger on what's going on with her. We're kind of journeying along with her on that as she's trying to discover what that is.
It's not just the one thing. It's going to be, whenever you're dealing with any traumatic event, it's never the single event that is the trigger. There's something else going to be along with it. Now, what happened to her was shocking and terrible and just horrific, but there's going to be something else on top of that where... Because if it was just the assault by the Joker, if it was just the paralysis, that would be one thing. But there's something more, out there that is later on going to come up, and that's the type of stuff that you get through therapy and through discussion, and she's going to get through inner reflection and whatnot. So I like the fact that there is more to this, and that's why as we've been saying throughout this whole thing, we need a monthly Oracle story, or at least a story where she's one of the main characters, if not the main character in it. So I don't know.
She works well in a squad-based book.
Yeah, she's a good team player.
Where there's a number of characters, but she can't be like some kind of bit background character. She's too interesting and unique a character to not have her as a main focus as a part of a book like that. So I don't care what that looks like. If it's this new Batgirl book, whether Oracle is Batgirl or there's a different Batgirl, she needs to be just as important part of that book as whoever that character is. So I'm curious to see how this is all going to play out.
Yeah. And as we're seeing in the series, she's looking for the anti-life equation. Is she trying to do it all herself? No. She's calling for backup. She's calling for her people to come in and do some work. You know, she's hooking up with her friend Cheese Fiend, who actually, I really liked how they used Cheese Fiend
She's
throughout
flipping
this.
off Jerry Mouse in the process, too.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry.
okay. But
She is!
yeah, I see, but she's just pointing at it, and it just happens to be that finger. I don't think she's intentionally saying, you, Jerry Mouse. But,
Hey, she's in a very dark place. Maybe happy things are making her angry.
okay.
I liked the whole Cheese Fiend setup, all kidding aside, because you see this cool avatar that's pulled in. We would all, like, choose, like, iconic avatars and things, you know, things that remind us of things we enjoy. So I like that it looks like this animated character. But then when you see Cheese Fiend's room, it so totally fits to me what a tech geek, I mean, it's what my room looks like in here right now.
She's got Superman bookends.
Yeah, but she's got also, if you take a look at all these mystical, like World of Warcraft style action figures, you know, it's obviously she's an MMO gamer or, you know, some kind of role-playing gamer from the figures that are up there. She likes fantasy. This is a huge fantasy aspect. I love that the computer table, though, looks very high-tech. She's got the speakers. She's got, obviously, a sound connection there that makes it easy for her to talk and listen. You know, it's just a wonderfully detailed room, and that was another thing that set up the mood for me, too, was the details on that room. You really needed to establish that this person is who she is, because I think we as readers can all connect with her.
Yeah, she's one of us.
Yeah.
You know, she's a female version of us. We're like, ooh, a girl that likes computers. All right.
But there's Superman, Batman bookends, because if you see the other one, Batman's on the other side.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So if you see the next panel down, which I thought was a neat little twist to have, because I wanted the bookends right after I saw them.
Don't you have those bookends?
No, I don't, but I want them. They do
also
have
in
those.
On the first page, on the bottom panel, with those two kids playing. One kid's playing with a Batman doll, and one kid's playing with a Superman doll.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was cool. Like, you see that again.
It's nice that you see the things. It adds an element of realism to the world when you see iconic elements in the background, toys and things that we all either have played with or want, or, you know, things that are currently solicited in previews, or, you know, just those or echoes of things, even if they're not the exact things. Because the mouse did look like Jerry Mouse to me, which I'm like, okay, that would be an icon. You know, that would be something that somebody would use as an avatar easily for Cheese Fiend.
Now, I tell you, the calculator sneaking into the computer room for this financial institution or business or whatever it is really just impressed me. Because one, it shows, once again, that this is the calculator. He is a worthy opponent of Oracle. He's not just your bare-bones villain who can maybe use a computer here and there. No, he's got an intelligence, but he also knows people. And he completely just plays this janitor to a beautiful way. Multiple weeks, he comes in, he makes sure the janitor sees him, you know, so the janitor knows, hey, this guy belongs here. And every single time he goes up to the same floor, hangs out at the same floor, and he's doing this for multiple hours. So this janitor knows that, hey, this guy's his buddy. He strikes up conversations with me. Hey, yeah, late night. Oh, yeah, you know me. Never no rest for the wicked, you know, and all that type of just good old natured, you know, office type banter. And sure enough, this one day he goes, oops, hey, they changed my access code. Oh, let me help you out, pal. I'll be a buddy, and I let you in. That type of stuff, unfortunately, happens all the time in business world, where you see somebody you don't know who they are, but hey, it's okay. I've seen them on this floor multiple times. Let me let you in.
He does know who he is, though, because the calculator made sure that's the interesting twist to it is this guy knows who the calculator is because he put the time in to make sure he knows who he is.
Right.
So this guy isn't looking at a stranger here. This guy's looking at a familiar face that he's seen every day, who's talked to him every day, and who he built a relationship with.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's what I love. But I tell you, you know, where I work, we've had people where, you know, because everywhere you go in the building is secured. You have to have your ID around your neck at all times. You got to go to the touch card where it lets you into the different sections. You have no idea how many times someone just swipes the door. Oh, here, let me get the. They have no idea who the person is that's coming into the section, and it's just, I've seen them around before.
But this is more justifiable than what you're presenting right there because of the fact that the calculator spent so much time getting to know this guy. and put that in there. This guy is now very familiar with the so it's not a guy where he's saying, I don't know who this is or anything like that. He does know him because the calculator played the ultimate scam on the guy. So I have more sympathy for the janitor than what you're talking about there, because the calculator really went out of his way to snow him, and then the card cloner thing is brilliant.
Yeah, you put the little card coder, reads his card. Now he has the janitor access. And janitor access is basically super access, because you think about it. You got to clean the floors everywhere. You got to empty the wastebaskets everywhere. These are the people that get everywhere and anywhere. So sure enough, boom, he now has super access to this building. And I was just like, this is absolutely perfect. This was just a great way to, show how he gets in. It shows his level of his intelligence, his planning, but it also just shows, the calculator is one dangerous guy to deal with.
I'm always impressed with face close-ups. Like when they're showing calculator here with Alta Viva, he's going to break into the game and look for this cheese fiend. But when he's going to do that, the close-up of is just his eyes and the glasses. There's something about that kind of detail when an artist can get up really close like that and make them look almost alive that I find really impressive.
Really good at this. Yeah, this guy's really good at that stuff.
Because, that really is, there's a detail to that where I'm like, ooh, I feel like I'm looking right at somebody. Yeah. I really do. And that is, to me, very impressive.
Plus the glare off the glasses as well.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, yeah.
The line detail, though, around his eyes, there's certain little imperfections and details and lines that we all get or we all have that you naturally see when somebody's in contemplation. You see one eyebrow's cocked up a little higher than the other, shows he's thinking. But there was just so many little tiny details on that I just thought were really impressive and made this guy feel very real to me, that it just kind of struck me. It's funny how two eyes and a pair of glasses looking at you can be done so well that they evoke emotion, and I really liked that.
Yeah, I thought that was great the way you mentioned where he's raising his eyebrow and the good position of the lettering where he goes so. And they bold it, so it's just like you can see that bold so actually tying in with the raised eyebrow, like that's where the accent comes in his voice. It's like, so, you like to play little games, little mousey. So that was really cool, too. And I had never actually noticed the eyebrow going up until you just said it.
And that is the great thing, too, with looking back through the art over and over again. There are things that I notice, like in multiple look, like I didn't notice that until one of my later look-throughs as well. It wasn't the first time around. It was like my third time, maybe. I caught that.
I caught that on my first time.
Yeah, well, that's you. But us lesser mortals I'm talking about.
I know.
Yeah.
I sometimes forget.
Yeah. Go back to talking to the little voice in your head.
Well,
or the one you're ignoring. But those are the things that there is. I would just say that to anybody again. I know I have a broken record with this on the show, but if you don't go back through and reread your comics at what we pay for them now, do yourself a favor, because the people that work on these books spend so much time putting in tiny details in there specifically for us to notice. They're there because they work hard to put them there. Why would you not go back and revisit these books? If you do a one read through and put the book down and never look at it again, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because there's stuff in there that's meant for you to notice, that you're meant to pick out. And that's something that is a pure joy that I haven't honestly been doing since recent years, since we've been doing the show. Jim and I started doing that as a part of, doing our notes for the show and preparing. And I've gotten so much more joy out of my comics doing that now. It's something I haven't done since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I think we can learn from kids.
Well, I mean, I think you guys might have said it on one of the shows that, when we were kids, we would have to, wait sometimes a month in between new comics. And, mm-hmm. You had all that extra time to reread and go back because you had to. Now, I think you had also said on one of the shows that now sometimes you feel like you're reading just so that you can get the books done because you have new books coming next week, and you don't always get that opportunity to go back. So when you have people who take the time to put the added value in because they want to, because they really want to, make a world really rich and full of textures, that, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't, because this book, I mean, just as using it as an example, is just so, deep with added value, and it's so many layers that you can really just get so much out of it. I'm seeing stuff just as you're saying it now, and I've seen it multiple times already.
We flip to the next page with her when she's, so excited talking about the game. which, we all get because, these Second Life style MMOs, I see Sony's advertising right now this Free Realms, which is another free one. There's a lot of free ones that are out there now that people are jumping on and becoming a part of. That this is a very big world because there's free MMOs and pay MMOs and all that have become such a lucrative business because when you were talking about, Jim, you're serialized. This is people who can log on to the same game and keep getting new content, keep exploring the world in a new and different way than they had before. A lot of these worlds are persistent worlds, and there's ever-changing climates in a lot of these worlds that you'll log in 3 months later and there's something new to do. There's some new change to that world. It makes it worth coming back to. That this excitement is something a lot of people are experiencing right now. But I love the details when we're looking at her. It's not just seeing her and the pop cans in the front. You could have left it with that. But I love the tiny details of the edge just coming up from the poster in the background. A little bit of a tear there and a rip. These are little details you really didn't need to put in. But again, very real to a world. This isn't a framed poster. It's one that's been stuck up. I know that I've had the same experience with things in my room that I haven't had framed. It's why everything in here is framed. Because I like them in that condition now. But I remember back at my father's house when I was living there, my bedroom there, I didn't have anything framed. Who had money to frame anything? Everything was thumbtacked up, and there was ripped corners and things like that over time, not on purpose. It just happens from normal use. It just was very natural, real-world settings. And again, cracks in the wall that show that, Gotham, or, wherever she's at. I don't know. Did they establish where she's at?
I don't know. I don't think she did.
No.
She's got to be, is she in Gotham? Or
no, she's somewhere.
She's somewhere else, yeah.
Yeah.
Wherever she's at, again, same thing. This is a bit of an older place, an older apartment or an older house, wherever she's at. I'm assuming an apartment. But, it's just an interesting little mood setting from it.
Yeah. They really give you a good sense of where she is. She's definitely, three-dimensional. Like every nuance, even like the shirt that they're putting on her, like the Cosa Nostra pizza is just, they're just trying to make you seem like she's just a regular person. This is just, her in her life, and just all the stuff that, she obviously spends a lot of time in front of the computer because she's got 3 cans crumpled up and she's already on her 4th one. So this just must be like a regular thing for her. She's here for hours at a time.
Yeah, and I like this Alta Viva, world they're setting up in where she's got her meeting with Babbage, who we later learn, of course, is Calculator. They're meeting about finding pieces of the anti-life. I liked just this whole lead up to it. She's initially telling Barbara, hey, I got this invite from this guy. Yeah, I think I remember I've dealt with him before. And Barbara's like, hey, let's be careful here. It's the Oracle kicking in. It's the team leader kicking in. She's calling out the shots, and it's, she's got the experience. You don't go running into something. You don't go jump in blindly. Well, she, this is, Cheese Fiend, that's not her deal. Yeah, she's a hacker. Yeah, she's, they're calling them white hackers or black hackers, the good hackers type things, is her agents working out there. But it's still, she's not a field operative. She's not used to dealing with an evil the level of the Calculator. So she's all excited and all, yeah. But Barbara's like, hey, let's hold on here. Let me get Chaos Larry as well in on this. You see Barbara Gordon, the team player, the team captain, and that's something I really like seeing her. She has that immediate concern for her safety. She's trying to set up some defenses just in case something goes wrong.
But they also don't know her whole deal.
Right.
And that's one of the things with a virtual world. It's very true about a virtual world. It's very easy to have an anonymous identity in a virtual world where somebody thinks you're somebody you're not. And Barbara would, at this point, be a master at crafting for herself identities of who people think she is. Like, none of these guys know she's Barbara Gordon.
Right.
None of these guys know that she's Oracle, or if they know her as Oracle, as we've seen in previous storytelling as well, that they don't completely understand what Oracle is. She's very good at the sleight of hand through this world. She's kind of a master. She's almost a master manipulator in the sense that she's understood how to pull the strings of the internet world, and she really is a good version of the Calculator because we see the Calculator doing the same thing for evil purposes. So it's an interesting twist to the way that they operate.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately for Cheese Fiend, things don't go completely the way she thought they would. And, it was funny as they're laying out what happened to her. It was just one of those, kind of happy, she initially comes on the scene and she's got that, very the kind of the female barbarian type look, and she's like, hey, look at me. And the color scheme was kind of very happy-go-lucky. She first meets Babbage, she's got the tux with the red rose in it, and you just know this is not going to end well. This is going to be very horrible. There's just too friendly, too fun, too happy. And I was just like, but to be honest with you, I didn't see where this was going to go the way it went. Because that's just something that, yes, a virtual world. Okay, you die in a virtual world and you're, with the VR connection or the heavy connection, yeah, you can die. But this went beyond just dying in a game and dying in real life. There was like feedback that came through the system into her that caused her head to explode.
Well, this was established in Final Crisis that the internet could be used as a delivery method for the anti-life equation. And the calculator is playing with these deep powers. We see him with the jewels a little bit before that, where he's taking these jewels to a jeweler to craft these for use in the real world outside of virtual reality. Very specifically telling the jeweler instructions, when you cut these, you make sure, because it's all mathematical equations.
It has to be exact.
Yeah, and do not let them touch.
But we learn later what happens if you do.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, and I think we were all pretty clear on what was going to happen anyway when he said that. But I did like how we get to see a virtual version of these crystals that it's like he's testing them to make sure they work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that he's not the one who takes the fall until he figures out what he's doing with them. He's got all these people helping him along, and at the same time, he's like, hey, I got guinea pigs for every step of the way. So, he's got all that already laid out for him, which is just shows just how, just cold and, just beyond cold and calculating that he is, which makes it even more creepy for the, affection that he has for his daughter. It's just like, he'll go to any length, even like using people to any extent. So it's just, that was really good.
Is it bad that I was looking in the artwork to see if the bookends were okay?
Yes, it's bad.
I noticed that.
It is bad. You shouldn't.
I can't see them anywhere, so I don't know. But I was concerned because.
So here I am. I'm more concerned about the young lady who's died, and you're concerned about the bookends.
Oh, come on! The bookends would look good on my shelf. You thought I already had them.
I actually did.
That'd be awesome. Like how they have that Marvel book Damage Control where they go in and they sort of fix stuff up after they should have kind of like a DC version, but with just fans who go into say they can go into Chief Bean's apartment and you could just go in and say, yeah, I just want to see if those things are good because it's a shame for them to go to waste. So they'll be right back. I'll go get them.
It should be called the eBay Patrol or something like that because it's so totally what would happen. This stuff would wind up on eBay except for the things that you really want to keep.
Right, exactly. I was actually looking at it for the first time now, and it's just, I can't imagine that.
A lot of blood everywhere. That would be a nasty cleanup. That would be a really nasty cleanup job. I've a friend of my sister's does that for a living. He's carpet cleaning, sewage, and also does the for homicide cleanups. And he said that it's not a fun job to do when you're cleaning up after a crime scene or suicide or whatever. And just I can imagine that one right there would have to be extremely nasty with an exploded head.
That would be triple overtime.
Yeah.
Well, her comics would be fine though.
Well, if she kept them in the drawer boxes, they'd be fine.
Yeah, and bagged and boarded.
Yeah, bagged and boarded, fine.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a deep concern for her.
I know. We were sick and wrong. We were just sick and wrong, but oh well.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
I love this cover for issue 2 is really good. It's... I love the cover artwork on this.
And I just noticed the Oracle charm bracelet around
cool?
Robert Gordon's wrist. This right now, looking at this thing, oh wow, I never caught that before.
Yeah, I saw it today for the first time when I was staring at the covers. I was like, oh wow, she's got that on. That's cool.
I like when there's her blouse has folds in it and things like that. There's just kind of natural things that happen when you wear clothes. That it's just little tiny details like that. I really genuinely appreciate now in the artwork. It is funny how much comic art for me has the artwork has grown. I've always been a story fan. It's the story that draws me in first, and the dialogue, and that remains the case. But it's amazing how much in the past couple of years I've grown to really, because I don't have an art background. I've learned so much more about tiny details in comic book artwork that I just really appreciate and recognize that, geez, that must take extra time to do, and I really appreciate the emotion that it evokes in me of realism, and how it draws me into a story and suspends my disbelief in a way that I didn't realize that it was doing until I started paying more attention to it. So it is something that, for me, without having an art background, I've come to appreciate just the sheer amount of work that an artist does and brings to the table for a comic book. And that's something, for whether it's the pencil work, the inking work, the colors, whatever, it's all of that brings something to the table for me that I really particularly appreciate.
I think this guy's a great storyteller because, I mean, even from the covers, he's letting you into this world. He's letting you into who she is, and even from this subtle physical nuances, you actually feel like you're looking at a real person. I think the second one is stunning because of what they do with the eyeglasses and with her eyes and with the little bits of sparkle everywhere, and you really feel like you're looking at something that's real, that she's looking out at you. So it's great that something in this case, like where the art is driving the story. The guy is a good storyteller. He's not just somebody who knows how to draw well. He's able to actually draw you into that world. So yeah, I was really blown away with these covers.
I love that the eyes do reflect what she's looking at, like you're saying, because you don't just see it in the glasses. You do see that the eyes are a little bit brighter. They're being affected by a light source, but you also see it in the skin. Yeah. You actually do see it in her skin tone. There's light reflections on the skin tone that that shows that she's looking at a very bright light source, which tiny details, again, that just really work for me. It's funny that there's different artwork on the cover and different artwork inside the book, but I feel that they all add value to the overall story.
Yeah, they work well together too. I don't feel like it's glaring, even though I can tell the styles are different. I thought that they complemented each other well.
Yeah, that's hard to do a lot of times. Where
it is.
Yeah.
Now, this opening sequence, talk about just starting off an issue with a bang. Last one ended with a head explosion. This one jumps right into the action, and it's kind of what I consider like hidden action. We get this opening dialogue about Hong Kong, and you see how just massively crazy the people are, and you can see even the initial pages of Barbara where she's really in depth thinking about what's going on, and she even admits it, that she let her guard down. She let the fact that she's in a wheelchair thinking that people aren't going to mess with her, and she's completely wrong, as a bunch of thugs jump her, and it was just a cool sequence where you kind of get this, in-depth, craziness of Hong Kong, then bam, right into the action. But this is Barbara Gordon. She was trained by the Bat. She's not going down without a fight. And I loved seeing just her, throwing down with these guys. We have a trained, disciplined fighter versus a bunch of, punks. And, it's, crack to the Coolians, drops the first guy. Hits the
that was good.
Hits the second one in a nerve cluster, causing him to kick his leg to take out his buddy. Third one goes, hey, I think I'm going to be a little bit smarter here, tries to grab the case and runs away, but no, he's introduced to the fighting sticks the hard way. I was just like eating this up, seeing her go bam, 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 and take them down, and then in the end, she crawls up to the dude and starts like, now, I took it that she slammed his face into the concrete multiple times.
It says it in the dialogue. It says it right in the dialogue, her internal dialogue. Her own disassociation is almost total. She has places to go. But she says she's completely aware of what she's doing to his face as it makes contact with the ground over and over again. But she's disassociating herself with this because she's got places to go. What's going on is dire. I mean, this girl's head exploded because she was working with Barbara. There's a definite reality to that whole situation and a responsibility to that would drive her. When you were talking about the busyness of Hong Kong and the craziness, I like that we not only saw that in people, but in the signs, and that this is a business district, that people are there because of that is their place to shop, their place to find things they're looking for, restaurants. This is the central hub of Hong Kong where people are going to want to be, and extraordinary numbers would lead to, you don't see empty businesses. You see way too many businesses,
right,
because they can all do well and thrive because of the sheer amount of people walking around. It adds a little craziness to the world that I thought was just very well crafted before we even hit the fight scene. And that they would have alleys that would be very easy to get lost in, because of the fact that people are just passing by very quickly. Nobody has time to look down and see what's going on. It would be very easy to get mugged or beat up in this particular area because, who's paying attention? Who has time? You're being pushed along.
It's boom, boom, boom. Gotta go
you
here,
can't
gotta
stop
go here.
and chat. Yeah. If you're stopping and chatting, it's inside sitting down somewhere. So it was an interesting little reality that was set up here before we switch back to calculator again.
Yeah, and once again, I really like seeing it's in a sick and twisted way how he cares about his daughter, and there is some honorable intentions behind him that he does want to help her. Now, we've already seen that the lengths he'll go to do it, but also just the lack of any regard to human life beyond his family, makes him dangerous and evil. But there is still that, I don't know, that little bit that makes me kind of, in a way, feel for him and understand why he's doing it. You just kind of wish he could have someone who could have better guided him on how to, direct his energy and use his knowledge.
He wouldn't have accepted that, though. He wouldn't have accepted that, because for him, it's all about his ego. In many ways, I have sympathy for him for the reasons that you say, and I do feel there's a genuine concern there. But I think there's also this cockiness about him and this sense of that, like, he can beat death, he can beat what has happened to her, and the twist is, the irony is when we get to the end of issue 3, what really happens with her, and what really happens with what he's doing. There's an irony to this whole thing, that he's playing with forces that he doesn't understand to try and do something that the question becomes, did he even really need to do this?
Right.
And that becomes it's the twist of reality of who he is. So you feel sad for him, yes, to a certain extent, that you could sort of sympathize with him. But there's this other end where, like, he's not stopping to think, is this even the right thing to do? He thinks he knows better than everybody else, and in the end, he's causing a lot of death and mayhem.
That isn't necessary.
Right.
If he were to actually stop and work with Oracle on this matter, the whole situation would have been solved. Forget the doctor. I don't think he'd be, I would rather, if he would have sat down and,
But that's the irony of the whole thing.
He wouldn't. He won't. I know.
But that's what I'm saying. The whole thing, you're saying work with Oracle, that's continuing the same problem that he has.
Yeah, I know.
In this particular case, Oracle would not work with him with the anti-life equation. Oracle would tell him to trust in the doctors because she's got her head's in the game. I mean, if you think about it, Oracle, with all of the things she's been exposed to, she could be searching for a cure for herself. She never has.
True, but here's the I don't know. I agree. I'm agreeing with you completely that you're right. They wouldn't work together, and she would tell him, "Hey, you got to trust in modern medicine. She'll come out of it, and that type of stuff." I agree.
And you also have to worry about the side effects of what you're doing and what could that be. And there are, and we're learning as this is going through. We're going to learn about some very serious side effects to the forces that he's exploring, because he doesn't understand what he's doing. He thinks he does. He thinks he's one step ahead of everybody. That he's figured out how this works. When really the end result is he knows nothing.
Now, here's the only question, though, that I raise. Now, I agree with you, so I'm not arguing with you.
Okay.
But if the giant what if, before Cheese Fiend was killed, before any of this happened, if Calculator had gone up to Oracle saying, "Hey, I have an idea to save my daughter. I will help you reassemble the equation. You choose one of your agents, so you're in complete control of the equation, and use it to save my daughter." Oracle,
what person in their right mind, with what happened with the anti-life equation when Darkseid released it, would allow that to be recreated or reconstructed or under the power of anybody? You would do everything you can to destroy any remnants or remains of anybody having knowledge of what that is, how it works. He is playing with forces that should never be. Look what those forces did to our planet. Who in their right mind would allow that to be reconstructed for any reason Oracle would never do that.
Yeah, Oracle. Okay, and as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, yeah.
If she came to him, she would have him locked up immediately.
Okay. And here's the thing: as you're talking, I'm completely agreeing with you. Yeah, Oracle. There's no way she would do it. But here's the thing: the reason I suggested is part of that curiosity of me. I probably would. I would think in my head, hey, I got...
Well, you got voices talking to you in your head.
True, but, I would honestly think,
don't let
if
you
I
watch
could
soap operas
control
anymore.
If I could control the usage of the anti-life equation,
right.
maybe we could use this for good. Not only save, Wendy here, think of how many people in the world have been sick and are dying. Maybe this thing could be the ultimate cure-all.
But we know as a society, anytime people try to take shortcuts and look for quick fixes, there's always dire consequences to them. There are no shortcuts. Modern medicine, will it eventually find ways to heal some of these things and do them? You would hope. I mean, look how far medicine has come since the time of cavemen. But look how long it's taken to get there as well. We'd all love the quick fix. I would love the reality of the quick fix. And there is something enticing about the quick fix. And I agree with you. Actually, I agree with your commentary as far as when you're saying, geez, there'd be something, wouldn't you... I don't know if I was faced with that. I don't know how I'd react either. But Oracle isn't us. She's been faced with these decisions countless times with people like Calculator who have tried to, quote-unquote, do things right, save the world. Luthor is a great example of a guy who is twisted in that sense that he always feels he's doing things for the greater good of mankind. But in reality, there's always that element, when is the cost too high for what you're doing? And this is a great example of that type of story. Calculator's totally in character. I totally agree with what he's doing, and Oracle would be fundamentally against it because she's seen too many calculators out there who have tried doing this type of thing, and she'll want to take his batteries out. I mean, it's kind of the reality. It's a wonderful debate, though, because you're right. As a person, you and I'm with you in the sense that I probably would lean towards, well, we kind of at least kind of look at it, don't we? And there would be...
There's that temptation.
Well, and that's
there
very
is
human.
That temptation, man, and
she understands that in a way that she's been exposed to it in a way that we haven't. That's been her life's career, and she's a great example of it. It's one of the reasons why I do lean in the camp. Then, do we need to see her healed? I don't know. This is one of those parts where when I say I teeter-totter, I get excited about thinking about her up and around again. But then I think about these moments and I'm like, well, she is a classic example of somebody who hasn't ever taken the easy way out when she could have.
Okay. Well, let's get back to the book.
It is the book.
More importantly, let's get back to a rain-soaked image of Barbara Gordon as she arrives at the burying trust.
Wow. All right. That's an interesting twist. You don't want to talk about when he's working on the amount of work that he put in on understanding this equation, because that was a sequence right here where I was really impressed with how well this was developed, and I've got to give the writer and the art team credit for what they did here, because this sequence of events where he's looking at his daughter, and we're seeing just what kind of level he went to analyze this code and to try and get to the bottom of what makes it work so he could utilize it. Because it's not so much a matter of just getting the anti-life equation. It's a code that you can't just blurt out because it'll blow up your head. He had to find a way to use the life aspect of it, not the anti-life aspect. He wants to use the element of it and isolate a part of it to do something good for his daughter. And that is where I think you're right. There is a noble intention there. It's just he's playing with forces, godlike forces, that he doesn't understand.
And he doesn't care about the repercussions either. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't matter to him. So,
if he found out that in order for Wendy to revive and walk again, the entire hospital full of people had to die for that to happen, that would happen.
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat.
Right, and
that's not even up for debate. And I tell you, I agree with you.
That's why Barbara would never let this continue.
Well, I know,
or start.
Yeah. But it still does. There is still that hanging question in my mind. Mm-hmm. What if a good force could do what he's doing? If a good person could do all this calculations like he's doing, because he is doing some amazing stuff here. Mm-hmm. You're talking about like there's broken pieces of the code out there, and he's got to basically fill in other octets and whatnot into the equation to make it go through. And that in
But
itself
because he's
is
doing
impressive.
that but you got to remember, because he's doing that on a computer and he's accessing networks, that code is now accessible to be hacked
Yeah.
and to be utilized by others. The irresponsibility of what he's doing on a scale. There is no such thing as, once you're connected to a network, there is no such thing as totally safe data. I mean, everything could eventually be hacked.
Right.
I mean, it's just,
But it's a
reality
calculator,
of it.
so he won't be hacked.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just it.
Yeah, I know.
Oracle's hacked him, and there's other
Yeah.
people out there that could. So I mean, that is the irresponsibility of what he's doing on such a huge scale. He's throwing out there. Remember, we've seen what it can do on a death-defying level. He's experimenting with something by putting out there all of it.
Yeah, and I like how he is also going after the other agents of Oracle, because you got to figure there's other people out there that's going to be dealing, like that cheese fiend's dealing with. He does identify Chaos Larry's got a piece of the equation. He's going through looking for
Sweet Pickles Perkins.
Yeah. Finding that these are all agents of Oracle who are out there who are looking for a piece of the equation. So he's going to start hunting them down to see what they can give him. I thought that was a really impressive thing where, save him some of the work. So once again, he is cutting corners with a very dangerous thing, but I don't know. I like his MO, what he's doing, and how he's going about it. Now, with the rain-soaked Barbara Gordon, and yes, I'm going to keep bringing that up just because, the image.
They bring it up.
Hey, and I love this brain trust, because they are us. Think about it. Just, these guys, I could see, sitting in an apartment, hanging out with them, talking to them, having them call me a dork back for some of the stuff I've said. I'd fire back with, loser or whatnot. I don't know. It would just be the regular everyday banter we have between people. And it was, even Barbara doesn't take crud from him. She throws down with him a little bit as the one guy's like, hey, if you need to take a shower, we can, let you, accommodate you there. And it's like, yeah, sure. What do you got, a new camcorder you want to test out? Please. And it was just, I liked seeing this, this interaction among geeks. It was kind of cool.
I liked that he was protecting her identity. Kept calling her Scout.
Yeah.
It was interesting how he gave her a code name, and this Bobby character, he plays it really cool because it's very real too. Obviously, there is an attraction there for him on some level, and I like how when she's talking about getting a towel, he's calling the other guy a dork. Basically throwing his friend under a bus so he looks cool.
Exactly.
But I mean, that's, we've all been there. We've all done that.
In a heartbeat.
Yes.
You get a good-looking female coming in. She obviously knows computers because she's there for something specific. So you're like, wow. It's like when you're at the comic book convention and you see the good-looking girl that's not just some eye candy at a booth, that's actually diving through the boxes. You're like, oh, wow. There's one of them. These guys are throwing each other the bus. It was a realistic. We talked about the realistic moments when we saw Barbara with her father and just some of her inner dialogue as she's, rebuilding the electrical system. This is, again, another example of the realistic, humanistic nature of people. And I ate it up.
The irony is the guy that was thrown on the bus probably has the best chance.
Yeah.
Just because she's probably the one she's most likely to talk to beyond the whole experience.
Now, this is a cool setup, and I really liked how they had the full virtual reality that they're pulling in, but they also had snapshots of the web right before the anti-life equation was launched out there. And that's part of the reason she went to them, was because she needed to see what the web was like before everything happened, so you can, one, find the pieces, or two, better understand what's out there and what is available now. And I like that
how to track
concept.
it too. It's how to track it. In order to track something, you have to know what it's basically norm referencing. And it is interesting that this is very Lawnmower Man. Did you ever see the movie Lawnmower Man?
Yeah.
This is very Lawnmower Man to me in its presentation. It was something I really liked about that film, as it explored. You would think we'd be a lot closer to virtual reality being in our homes now. And I do think we're eventually going to that point where there's going to be a lot more of that, because they've got glasses now that are a fairly reasonable price for consumers, where you can actually have like widescreen television that's the size of huge big screen TVs right on your eyeglasses. So we are close to having affordable technology that can actually do that. So it is interesting to see what Barbara's doing right now and how real it feels. That there are people, hackers, that would have high-end enough technology that could really do this. It doesn't feel out of the realm of possibility that, like, when Lawnmower Man came out, that we all clearly knew that technology wasn't quite there yet. But in this case, this does feel very real that these guys would have this in their home.
Yeah, especially because they're building it themselves. Mm-hmm. This isn't something they bought off the shelf at Best Buy. These are these super geniuses who are creating this, who are trying to make it reality for everybody and make an amazing amount of money for themselves in the process. So very realistic for me to see these kind of guys, this kind of brain trust come up with this. Now, one of the things I really digged throughout this, after Barbara does her dance on the virtual reality, and you see just the vastness of the internet, that beautiful 2-page spread of her on in her avatar form and all that. But even throughout all this, Barbara is still thinking about her team. She's thinking about, hey, let me have a secure line and contact Chaos Larry. Because if Calculator can trace things back from Cheese Fiend, maybe he'll see Larry. I got to protect my team. I got to make sure, everybody's okay. And I like the fact that she's thinking that, and she's even throwing out the warnings to Larry, hey, you need to back off. There's some real life danger here. Fiend is dead in real life. I like that factor behind it, that she's still thinking about her team, and she's still thinking about, hey, we need to focus on this. You need to make sure you're safe. And I thought, that was a cool thing, but you always run into that, will he actually listen?
It also gives him the opportunity to decide whether or not he wants to back out, though.
Right.
Which I thought was very important.
And if it was me, I wouldn't have backed out. I guarantee it. Because, the whole thought of how can the computer actually kill me?
No, but see, you're saying that Chaos, do you really think that Chaos Larry doesn't believe her? I think he totally believes her.
I don't know. I think there's still some...
I don't think he believes her entirely.
Yeah.
You don't think that he believes her that she died?
He believes Cheese Fiend is dead, but there's no way he can believe that a game could kill her. That it probably maybe was an outside agent.
So you think that's part of his motivation for continuing, then, is curiosity?
Part of it has got to be curiosity. Part of it is that feeling of right and wrong. You think about it, you look at Chaos Larry. He's not a physically athletic person. He's not the kind of guy that, I'm going to guess, probably don't have the women's, crooning for him. Here's his chance to be the hero. Here's his chance to step up and be the White Knight. He's going to step up and do that. This is the kind of thing where this is a virtual battle. And he's like, hey, I'm Chaos Larry. I can throw down in the virtual world, and I'm not going to get really hurt.
I don't think he believes it. He feels trapped, though, too. If you say right here, it says, Larry, walk away. It's not that easy. There's something I didn't tell you. I got an invitation from this guy, Babbage, just like the one Cheese Fiend got. He knows how to find me. At this point in time, he isn't feeling totally in control or in charge. He's feeling like a victim as well. This guy's tracked him down, which changes his whole... It's a violation of his world. So there is elements of that's in play here as well. I can agree with you to a certain extent that part of the issue here is that maybe he doesn't totally... Because he does talk about, do you have an idea of the kind of power that would need to be generated in order to do that? But there is that part of him that is seeing that there is some element of truth to what she's saying, because this guy has tracked him down, Babbage.
And that's part of the call-out. This guy tracked me down. He can find me. I'm going to throw down with him. I think I took it more of a, that he's been called out, and this is his chance to man up. He's probably been, he's probably another one of those guys who got picked on as a kid. He probably never really got in a physical, violent fight in his life, so here's his chance to man up. He's like, I cannot walk away from this. I gotta try. And that's how I kind of see it. And even when, later on when he initially starts the battle, he's throwing down, he's hitting him with everything he's got. He's like, yeah, booyah, I'm doing this. I think it's one of those things with this issue about multiple layers of stuff going on. You have this initial confrontation. You have this initial call out of Larry. Does he back down? Does he run and hide? No, he's not going to run and hide. You got Barbara, who's got her initial problem.
There is a fear element to Larry as well that I don't think because I read Larry as very human, in a good way. I agree with what you're saying, elements of what you're saying, in the sense that there is parts of Larry where he's trying to find a way to handle this himself. But I do think there's a fear element that's driving him as well, versus dun, 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 the shiny white knight and all that stuff. I don't see him in that role.
I see a little column A, little column B. There's got to be some fear.
I actually will buy into that. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not totally against you on that, but there is a fear aspect, because when she talks about shutting down his cell phone and stuff like that, he comes back with lines like, do you really think it's that serious? And those are lines of fear talking. You know, it's not him being cocky and saying that he doesn't totally believe her. He believes that there's enough of what she's saying that it scares him to a certain extent. But I do agree with you that there is an intelligent aspect of him where he's like, well, I'm not just going to sit around and wait for this to happen. I'm going to find the back doors in there as well. So I agree with both sides of it. So I do see what you're saying there, and I agree with that. But I don't think it's that cut and dry. I like that, actually. That, to me, is good writing, because they've written this guy as very human. And there are both sides to him. So I will take back part of what I'm saying and agree that there are elements of him as well that is saying, I need to take care of the part of this myself. So... But but there's a fear element in there.
Oh yeah, there definitely is.
I do think he is convinced that there is something going on.
Yeah, but I still think it's a combination of a fear, a dun-da-da, and also there's that lasting bit of him saying that how can you get hurt from a computer? He's not VR hook up. He's sitting at a monitor watching.
You know what? If you said, how could a computer hurt you, why would you feel the need to then go and do something about it? I disagree with you.
I think it's more of
is he believes that there is something happening.
Well, he thinks there's something happening, like, you know, maybe, this is doing.
Because why do something? If he thought she was bunk nuts.
No, I'm not saying he thinks she's bunk nuts. I'm thinking that he's thinking there's something dangerous going on. That this guy is a bad guy. He got Cheese Fiend killed somehow. He doesn't know how exactly. He doesn't think it was feedback from the computer monitor. He probably thinks it was an agent. The guy had an agent, go to her house and kill her. Is probably what he's going through his head. So he's thinking, we got a bad guy here who's doing something in the virtual world.
I didn't catch.
If I destroy this, I can help. That's what I'm just going off my head here. It's one of those. I'm trying to get myself in Larry's head and get in Larry's mindset.
And see, in my mind, in Larry's head, he is believing enough of what Barbara's saying. Maybe he doesn't 100% believe her, but he's believing enough in what she's saying that he's acting on it. Well, he's acting based on what she's saying.
I say if he really believed that he was in any real danger, he wouldn't have logged in. I think he would have backed off and said, hey...
I think he's believing, though, with how much he respects technology, that there is no escape from this guy, because the guy already knows where he's at. And he references that he now feels he has to do something. And that's why he's acting.
I think he's torn. I think it's elements of both of what you're saying. I think that in one aspect he feels like he's in this virtual world of computers that he should have control in, and I think part of him is kind of like needling him in the back of his mind, saying, I feel like I might be entering into a situation that I have no control, and that's just unfathomable to me, because I thought this was my domain. I thought I understood this. I think he was letting fear creep in when he said, he knows how to find me. Did you hear me? And then you see that next shot where he's sitting in front of the computer. He's got a glass of wine, but half of it's gone, and his hair is a little tousled, and his eyes are crossed. And I think he's kind of I think he's in a situation where he doesn't want to believe it, but I think he's sort of forcing himself to man up, because he thinks that maybe he does know how to know the choice. So maybe he's going in because he figures, well, I have to go in anyway, so I might as well go in even though I'm scared. And maybe he's using the wine to give himself a little bit extra courage. But he's obviously definitely disheveled from this whole thing. So I think he feels like he's a little out of his element, just slightly.
It's denial, and in order for there to be denial, there has to be something to deny.
Right. Yeah.
So, at his core root, he does, and I agree with you that he's putting up that facade of I can't be, but you're right, the Dutch courage, pulling up the wine, as a dead, and that's an important element of who this character is. I love the reality of him, though, that he feels very real, and that there isn't one layer to him. It's multi-layered what's going on with him. And I think if we got into his head, it'd be a whole mess.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Which
and they do that really well.
Yeah. Who wouldn't be a mess in that situation?
I would be. I would be upset if my Xbox Live connection went down. I don't know what would happen at this point.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I like the fact that he initially starts off doing pretty good. He shows up initially and he starts blowing things up, and I do like the fact that he had just a glimmer of hope, to this guy, that maybe you could actually do some good, maybe you could stop it. And it was one of those things, though, as soon as Calculator shows up, oh no, poor guy, he's joining Cheese Fiend. And I was kind of glad that they didn't completely go that way with him, that they used him to tell a different side of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as he started blowing stuff up, I said, oh, this is not going to end well with him. He thinks he's doing something good. I said, this is going to be bad. He's going to be mad when he gets there.
Yeah, they needed to throw a red shirt on his avatar just to let us know what was going to happen.
Yeah, that would have been kind of cool. I was just like, as soon as I saw him blowing stuff, I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah,
what did he do?
I like that Oracle refers to herself as a guy. And like throws off that I'm not Oracle, basically, that she's an agent of Oracle or working for Oracle in some capacity. I love that she keeps this illusion and the mystique of Oracle, never letting people get it. And actually, it does make sense. It is a male ego to feel that a female couldn't.
Yeah, I love that.
Do that. And that's how women always, they're just one step ahead of men a lot of times, in that men they do underestimate them and what their capabilities are. And it used to be that, your math and your sciences and things like that were not, were quote unquote not female subjects. And I'm not saying that I believe that. I'm saying that was the perception. And it's funny, even in my own time teaching, I've been teaching for 11 years, from when I started teaching to now, how that perception has changed.
Oh, yeah.
It's really interesting, and how many of my girls are very strong math students. My top 2 students right now in my class in math, one's a boy, one's a girl, and they run neck and neck, and I mean just top notch across the board. And it's just they happen to be the top 2, and that's the norm. But I've had years where it's been the girls who've been the tops, the boys who've been the tops. I've got girls who are diehard science fans who are out there in nature, into all that stuff. They're the same ones that the girls that are into Pokemon. They're into all the things that were quote unquote boys activities. The girls are just as into, and it's I think that gap has been closed for a much longer time than we all realize. It's funny, though, how the perceptions of society drive that, not ability.
Oh, yeah. Well, for sure. It's all about perception. And that's the funny thing. It's like, what is reality? It's extremely subjective. So that is very interesting.
I love that she uses it.
Yeah, she does. She uses it to maximum effect. I mean, on one level, she realizes that it puts people more at ease if they feel like they sort of have a handle on what Oracle is. So just let them, because then they'll be more at ease in her interactions with her. And also, it keeps her identity a secret, which is what she wants. So, that's it works for her in both ways.
Yeah, and we talked about just when Calculator comes to task and he's a little bit mad. Dude, that was just incredible bunch of sequencing where you really see him flex some muscle in that world. Because he's laid down the groundwork that he is, and we'll see this in issue 3, that he basically makes himself a super user over the game itself. And that's partially why he's able to do such damage in that Altavia universe, where not only is he attacking, Larry, but then he starts throwing down on Oracle to the point where the brain trust is, pulling connections, pulling her off VR, and you get that final sequence with, Calculators like, I'm coming for you and I'm going to kill you, and your little hacker user too. Kind of like, it reminded me of the
Wicked Witch.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you and your little dog too. I was like dying because like, oh my god, this is outstanding.
Yeah, that was scary at the end. It really was. I mean, just having him kind of like break that, in a sense, that fourth wall. Like, this is not just something that you're watching. I can see you, and that was really scary. It was terrifying because he's just evil.
And it was scary to the people around her too.
Yeah.
This whole team of people that she's working with are yanking cables. They're taking everything. Basically, they've lost control of their computers. They've shut down their network, and
he's still there.
Yes.
He found them. And that's just like, wow.
Yeah. They took it out of her hands, and that didn't work.
No, they obviously, the anti-life equation or whatever he's playing with, that obviously does not need wires. So that's pretty scary.
Which actually makes the cover for the third one that much better, where it does show Oracle disheveled. It shows her a little bit. There's some cuts and blood. There's a little bit. Her hair's messed up. Looks like everything is crashing around her. So
the hanging mouse.
Yeah, the hanging mouse. It's just there's a lot of just that.
Even her glasses are.
They're off her. This is the first time you don't.
They're
see
also
her with
cracked in the one lens.
Yeah.
You see multiple cracks in the one lens, and there's glass broken on the floor, clearly from computers. It's just, and wires. You can actually see like telephone wires and stuff like that on the floor. It's just an interesting change from the previous. But again, she's a very powerful character, and there's something iconic about her. There's something unique about Oracle that just stands out in every picture that was done of her. He did a great job on this. It was just very captivating.
Yeah, he really did understand her, because I haven't seen too many instances of her. I mean, I've seen a few where I just said, yeah, that's Barbara Gordon, but I mean, I feel very, very sort of comfortable with the connection during this series, because it really feels like the artist has a very good sense of her, and he's able to make it come through in every aspect. And then the covers, like my wife likes comics, but she's not somebody who collects on a monthly basis. And when she saw the covers to these books, she's like, this is incredible. And she actually took them from him and started looking. So he really did do a great job with this stuff.
When we take a look back at Hong Kong, I liked the little aspect that she saw the breaker box when they came in. It shows that she would analyze the surroundings. That fits her as Batgirl as well as Oracle. As Oracle, obviously she would need to know where the power supplies were and everything as well. But it does fit the detective aspect of being Batgirl, from her librarian days as well, research, and it fits her mind.
She's got the analytical mind.
Yeah.
She's got the analytical mind, and she's got the presence and the wherewithal to know, hey, gotta kill the power completely. That's the only way to really stop Calculator from going after this crew right now, was to not give him a way to get into them. So killed off the phones, killed off the power, killed off the computer. And I like the fact that she does, of course, give them the same warning, like, hey, you got to stay off. You can't log back on or he's going to find you. And I got a feeling these guys are going to listen to her just because they saw the monster coming at them through the computer after they'd already yanked the wiring. So that was kind of a, you see they kind of have a little bit more somber to them. They're not as brash. They're not as, arrogant. They're kind of like going, whoa, what just happened here? Like the one dude, it's kind of like they have like the look on their faces, so. But now
I love that she tracks it back to Gotham City too,
right,
which is great through the wireless network on the phone. She uses the IP address, and she knows IP addresses so well that she's able to track right away. It's back to Gotham City.
Yeah, that was something cool. That's a cool Oracle thing. The fact that she can do that. So I like that.
And that's very real today too. People can be easily traced by their IP address now.
Yeah. Well, people are getting IP traces.
Right.
But now, I love seeing with the whole thing with Chaos Larry. Just he died, a couple minutes ago. He had a heart attack. EMTs were able to get the heart going again, but he's still connected. There's still that power. Because we'll see later on, Calculator will, kind of shoot up the body, kick it a couple times, and he goes back into convulsions again. This is just some really nasty, nasty power. And that was something that just kind of really got to me. And that's when I really started thinking just how powerful this anti-life is. And, could anybody really control it? Because in reality, when it was unleashed before, no one was trying to control the anti-life, kind of.
Well, that's not true. Darkseid completely controlled it when it was first unleashed.
Was he more controlling it, or was he more using it?
He was completely using it. Everyone was worshipping Darkseid. How can you say that was not being directed? Take a look at what
I think only he can. I don't think anybody else. I mean, I'm because of who he is. But even him. I mean, can you really control something which is of the fabric of the universe?
Well, I mean, the whole basis of the Justifier helmets was using those to control the people that he put under the anti-life equation. So yes, he completely controlled them.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was the whole basis of everything. He created a whole army of people that were controlled by the anti-life equation.
And I'm not just arguing that point. I'm saying, but in in the truest sense of what the anti-life equation is. You know, not the physical, but the id of the anti-life, if you will. Can you truly control that power? Can even someone of Darkseid's level truly control it? Yes, he
did.
He had the appearance that he was controlling it. And there were the people who were under the influence of it. But was Darkseid really controlling it? He was,
Did you read what happened to Black Lightning?
Well, once again, it's someone who came under the influence of the anti-life.
Green Arrow?
Was the anti-life equation larger than even Darkseid? That's my kind of wondering behind the anti-life equation. Eventually would have grown so powerful, so big, that even Darkseid couldn't control it.
Well, we didn't see that, so I don't know.
That's where I'm talking about. The thing we never saw. The development that never happened because the heroes fought back. The development because Superman is Superman and he was able to stop,
I think that's
save the day.
That's the whole point of the anti-life equation, though, would be that if someone were to gain control of it, they would be able to do what Darkseid did. So what you're saying takes away from the whole premise of why Darkseid wanted it.
But I think Darkseid didn't even realize that he could never even control it.
I guess there was nothing in the story that made me think that.
Once again, these are just me thinking beyond the story, beyond what I'm actually seeing, just wondering. It's, in a way, this is pot talk. I'm just like, what if this happened, man?
If what you're saying would have happened, though, he wouldn't have succeeded. That's where it would have come into the storytelling. He wouldn't have succeeded because he couldn't control it. There was nothing to indicate he completely controlled it. That was the reason why things got so dire for the heroes, was because on a global scale, he was able to shut down a planet using it. And it went beyond and could continue well beyond the planet. If it wasn't for the Green Lanterns, it easily would have. They kept the planet quarantined because of the fact that the anti-life was running rampant.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that point with you. But
the problem here is, and where it fits in this story, the calculator isn't working with the anti-life equation as we know it from Final Crisis. He's taking elements of it and trying to manipulate and change it. Now, going under what you're saying, and actually, Vin's point made an excellent point. Darkseid could control it. The calculator is not Darkseid. And Vin made an excellent point there right now. This is not Darkseid. So we got a guy here who doesn't understand. See, I think Darkseid completely understood the anti-life equation, what its power was, because he's a god. Now you're dealing with the calculator. Calculator likes to think he's a god, but let's be honest, it's just ego talking. So we got a man who's playing with things, and that's one of the most dangerous type of villains, is a guy who thinks he's God, who doesn't understand what he's playing with. Here's a guy who it is going to get out of his control. So this is a great situation that actually addresses just what you're talking about. Now you've got a guy who's in a position that you're addressing and setting up here. The calculator doesn't understand it, and we see a resolution in this issue that proves that. He doesn't understand what he's playing with at all. And it got completely out of his control, and he actually would have hurt his daughter if he had succeeded in doing what he was doing, because look what happens to Chaos Larry.
Right.
So your point is actually being addressed here with Calculator, but this is not Darkseid, this is not a god. So I think that's where the distinction is. I guess, in my end, I never got the impression that Darkseid couldn't control it, but I do very much get the impression that this is the scenario we're seeing right here with the calculator. So I agree with that scenario in this story, 110%, and it's actually a valid scenario you're presenting for calculator. Sorry.
Exactly. Exactly what I'm saying.
I'm actually coming back and saying that this is actually a great scenario for calculator, not for Darkseid.
Right. And it's just, this is where I started getting my mind around just how powerful. Like earlier in the discussion, we were talking about how I was saying, what if, the temptation, what if, that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. That's where I was when I was reading the issues at those times.
So you're saying you're Chaos Larry.
Right. Me and Chaos Larry probably have a lot in common, and that's partially probably why I was reading more into his motivation behind it, because I was seeing myself as Chaos Larry, doing the things that he was doing, and the reason I was like kind of rationalizing if I was Chaos, how I would do it, what would I do. And seeing him laying there foaming at the mouth, having been probably, multiple cc's of, adrenaline, electroshock, and whatnot to keep him alive is kind of like, wow, this is some nasty stuff going on.
Well, and he's connected to the computer in his head now.
Yeah.
Because at this point, Chaos Larry's offline, but through the anti-life equation,
this is a Wi-Fi connection.
Calculator is still in his head using the anti-life equation now. very similar to the way he plays with computers normally, he's manipulating this guy internally, which is just intense. And that's where it really works for me on a level. Now Calculator's playing with forces that he does not understand at all.
Now, one of the things that I thought was really cool was we're seeing Barbara, kind of rally the troops. Well, not rally the troops per se, but we're seeing her lay down the plan. Throughout this whole thing, Calculator has been kind of one step ahead of her. She's been one by one, her agents, he's taking them down. He actually hunted her down in Tokyo, and now she's like, hold on, I need a better plan. So she's going to the creator of the Alta Via, to kind of get
her Steve Jobs, Lord British, people like that, and going right to saying, you created this. Now I need you to.
I know. I love this. Yeah. It shows her level of planning, showing that this is Oracle.
It's the guy who created Whopper in War Games.
Yeah, exactly. Finding the back doors to it, finding, he's a super user. He should have some control and, over this system. And this was really where, we see exactly what Calculator did. Because he even says, he's like, oh my God, he's running this on top of my program. He's got his own different program and operations going, and he's using this whole virtual reality as just a shell for his plans. And that is just really, showing once again, the intellect and the power that the Calculator has. And that isn't just anti-life enhanced. That is partially him. So I was really impressed by that sequencing when they show her talking to him. And I kind of chuckled when he first throws out, it's kind of late here. And she's like, well, your company's being used for stealing top secret documents and committing murder. You can be held liable. And she went right into the attack. It's the policeman's daughter who throws down the threat kind of thing, or even the Batgirl who knows how to use fear and a little manipulation. I liked seeing those elements of Barbara Gordon come out. And even the guy's like, hey, I was just saying, kind of backing off. It was kind of a neat thing.
The same Oracle we saw during that betting sequence in the one comic.
What?
In the one Battle for the Cowl comic, the Oracle that jumps in and shuts down, was it Hugo Strange's crew?
Yeah.
It's that same person, but coming at it from a different perspective.
I love when she puts the guy in his place when she first arrives to the apartment, like Jim was saying. She really is just like, I could have an entire warehouse.
Yeah.
So I really could care less about what's going on. People are dead. Let's just get to it. So yeah, that was great.
Same art. Again, we see her very powerful in a very different way. Her posture and the way she carries herself when she's talking to him, the eyes, the way they squint, it's and even the brows, the way that they're pulled in. It's a great example of where artwork conveys a different kind of powerful emotion. This isn't just confidence. This is an anger. This is a sense of urgency. There's all kinds of emotion wrapped up into what she's doing at the moment. We can't wait and sit and chit-chat. We need to move, and you need to move now whether you like it or not, Buster.
And here's something that got me that really just had me wondering something. You look at all the computer geeks we've seen before this. They've been your stereotypical geeks, a little bit nerdy, a little bit dorky. Then you get the guy who built Alta Vita, and the dude is like he's got guns on him. He's obviously rich because he built this virtual reality world, but he does not fit, just what is your stereotypical geek in mind. And the first thought that popped in my head is like, are they setting this guy up to be later on used in future adventures with her?
It almost seemed to be like he was a foil for her, or like somebody who could be in type of relation, because he is like an Adonis.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, even like you see the two of them sitting at the screen together. That could be right there. That could be an engagement photo. Just the two little happy couple. And it just...
I would love to see what he looked like if he looked the same before he made his money.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe he had a makeover. That would be a real interesting story to explore.
But I mean, also, maybe he started working because he was more in the public eye. He started working out or anything. I mean, you do see people that do change themselves. You look at Bill Gates is a great example of somebody who, while he still looks like kind of a nerdy dude. he definitely, when you see him now versus when you see early pictures of him, there's a definite difference to that guy.
Yeah. There's a little difference.
Not to this level.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I would love to see what this guy may have looked like, if he was a little bit more disheveled looking. Maybe he wore glasses before. This is him post LASIK, or, there could have been he probably always was a very big dude, but I wonder what, it would have been interesting to see if, there was liposuction involved or something like that. You never know. I mean, it easily could be done with this guy. Because once you make that kind of money, changes everything.
Extreme Makeover, DCU version. Come on.
We're really overthinking this guy,
I know.
too, aren't we?
Dude, man, we've jumped way too deep into this, but...
We're like being catty.
I know.
We can't accept that this guy's just naturally this way.
Dang it!
You look too perfect.
I know,
We're
being
man.
very catty. I love this.
Yeah, like what does he think he is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's got split ends. Look at those.
He thinks he's too good for us.
His apartment looks very boring, to be honest with you.
Really.
You look at the sequences we've gotten to see on him, and he doesn't have the original Van Gogh on the wall and the, look at me, I'm hoity-toity, I'm high and mighty. Granted, Oracle does shut him down initially, but if he was, Mr. really snooty moneybags, he wouldn't have answered the door. It would have been a butler, or it would have been security forces who prevented her from getting in. So this is another thing, and we later learn a little bit about him.
Guys, we have to take a break for a second because Alfredo Zapita Torres just sent me an important email about my ATM debit card. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, working in relationship with HSBC London, has concluded to issue me a Visa card with which you can access your contract amount, my contract amount of I didn't even know I had a contract.
Wow.
Of $6.8 million US. This card center will send you an ATM with which you can withdraw the money in any ATM machine. So any ATM machine can give me $6.8 million.
All right.
In any part of the
Your limit's
world.
been lifted for the day.
Yeah, this is great. But the maximum is $5,500 US per day. Oh, geez. So that's going to limit me.
That's going to take you a while.
Yeah. So if you'd like to receive your funds this way, please let us know by contacting the ATM payment department and also send the following information. I've got to send them my full name, my phone and fax number. I'll have to get a fax number because, it's worth it. Address where you want them to send the ATM card, my age, my occupation, my nationality, and my country of residence. So if I send them all that, the Bank of Nigeria will take good care of me. I'm surprised they didn't ask for my social. Maybe I'll send them my social security number. Just to be
I'm
on the safe
surprised they
side.
didn't ask for your social security number.
I might send that to be on the safe side.
Yeah, you probably should.
It was kind of interesting on a computer-generated episode to talk about how people use computers.
It's true. It really is. And what is reality? It's like you have no. So many people. It's amazing too because people will send it to them. There will be people who will do that, and it's just their perception of reality is, hey, I just won the $6.8 million. I'm glad I got this email. So it's just very bizarre. Really,
and how professional that email was too. Where it was using the correct initials, and it looked.
Actually, this is the more current generations. The early generations of this stuff were absolutely hysterical because the individuals sending the emails had no idea. I don't know. They definitely couldn't. They didn't speak English. They had to have been using an automated translator. Mm-hmm. So the grammar and word choice, it was just completely butchered. And we used to get these things, we'd read them, and we'd laugh out loud just because of just how ridiculous it was. Then, of course, we'd have to convince the customer, no, it's not real. Don't do it.
That's why we touched on before how we as a society, we tend to look for the quick fix and things like that. I think we're a little bit more savvy now because of stuff like this. And I wonder if this was presented to us. You talked about before, you said, well, yeah, I would immediately leap for it. I don't know that we as a society are as prone to leap for things like this now because of this type of nonsense going on. I think we're so used to so many people scamming people nowadays that I think we tend to be a lot less trusting than we used to be.
Oh, yeah, definitely. People are much more insular these days.
Yeah.
By and large.
Real world example with me. I had the Jehovah's Witness, stop by. And I like talking to Jehovah's Witnesses. They're fun people, talk about God and Christ and whatnot, but I didn't invite them into the home. I wouldn't invite them in. I didn't let them in. I actually talked to them through the screen door for probably a good 15, 20 minutes. Now, and the reason I didn't do this was because there have been several home break-ins where you invite the person in and they jump you. And there was two of them. There was a man and a woman. It was the woman who was doing most of the conversation, but there was her husband standing right there. And you know what? I wasn't going to risk it.
The sad part is that would be a working scam because
when
you think about it, there's so many good people that are out there, and Jehovah's Witnesses are, they're generally good, nice people who really are just going door to door because that's what they believe in, and they're trying to really convert people. But you're right that would be very easy to break into somebody's home and scam them by. I wonder if anybody's done that.
People have
used that as
I don't know if they've used the actual Jehovah's Witness, but people use that all the time where they use, car broke down. Gonna make a phone call, emergency, yada, yada, that type of stuff. I'm looking for my little doggy. Here's a picture of them. They open the door to take a picture. They shove right past you and go in. It's a break-in. It's, stuff like, this is the stuff I deal with on a daily basis. So, I immediately first, the
not
suspicion.
Jehovah's Witness fraud,
but the
fraud in general.
The fraud and the nastiness of society. So it's so that was the first kick in my head was look for a possible scam as these nice people are standing at my door talking about Christ and God and whatnot.
And I don't know them.
Right? Yeah.
That's sad nowadays. It really is. It's a sad state of affairs, though, where. For whatever, a lot of people give them flack, obviously, because of the door. And I can.
I used to invite them in all the time in high school. Man, I used to have a ball. I'd invite them in.
To.
Yeah, you sit down, you chat with them.
He used to send them down.
Fun.
This is a true story. My brother went through some really rough years, and I did too. I mean, but not in very different ways. Mine was due to a lack of motivation in my younger years. His was due to pop back the alcohol a little bit. So, he would sleep in sometimes till like 2:30, things like that. And my father I remember this is my first year teaching, right? So I'm teaching, I've got my life together, and we're both like thoroughly annoyed at this point in time. And he used to send Jehovah's Witnesses down to talk to my brother. And I mean, it wasn't like he was pulling anything on them. He would tell them at the door, I'd love you to talk to my son. He's been heavy with the drink. He's down in the basement. You want to go chat with him? They would go down and come and this is in all honesty, actually my respect level for Jehovah's Witnesses shot through the roof because, at first, I'll be honest with you, at first my dad did it as a joke. But then, I mean, it actually got to the point where my brother was getting up and going around and stuff like that because he didn't want my dad sending these people down to talk to him. It was hysterical.
Outstanding.
I mean, the guy, and here's a true story, and this is one where the Jehovah's Witness came back to the house for about a good 6 months after my brother had moved out to ask my dad how he was doing.
Oh,
That's
wow.
all he came for. So at this stage, he clearly knew that my dad wasn't looking to convert or anything like that. This guy came. So, I mean, my respect level for people, like beforehand, I used to get really annoyed with Jehovah's, I'll be honest, with the watchtower and coming to the door and stuff like that. I used to get really annoyed. My respect level for them as a group of people shot through the roof that, like, I'm like, this guy came back just to check and see how my brother was doing for like 6 months afterwards when he was making his rounds. Didn't give my dad a watchtower, didn't ask about any of that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, you know what, these are some people who really genuinely just believe what they believe, and they're doing their thing. They're not out to harm anybody. So it was a funny story but the sad part is, in our society, to bring it back to this, that could so easily and quickly be perverted because I think society in general, you would typically think Jehovah's Witnesses are just harmless people who are doing, their thing, what they believe in for their religion. That could be perverted and manipulated in our society so easily. And that's what happens nowadays. That's kind of the human condition, which is what I loved about this Oracle story, is it touches on the human condition. It gives you these back doors in. We get emails. We get people coming to our door. We get phone calls from people that scam you all the time because they're pulling on heartstrings. They're pulling on the good nature of society. You know, and that's a true reality of what we're facing here. And this story builds off of that. When you think about virtual worlds, they're usually for people who are looking for companionship on whatever level. You know, if you're playing an MMO, most often you go for an MMO for the social aspect of it. Think about when, Jim, you and I play City of Heroes together. We teamed up. Last time we got together, we teamed up. I planned to do like one mission. We ended up doing a couple missions together just because we were having fun, and there was the social aspect of the gaming. There was, us chatting back and forth, and there was some interplay there that you can't get in certain types of gaming. And I think with your Second Life and this Alta Vista, it takes it to a whole new level because those worlds, there's not really so much a game aspect of like, let's go get together and fight things. It's completely geared towards creating your own user environments to just socialize altogether. Like Alta Vista, I didn't see the game there. It was more like Sims.
That is the game. Yeah, it's kind of like Super Sims, basically.
Right.
It's you create a world and you're placed in it, and then you just interact how you would like to, as opposed to how you actually are. So that was interesting.
Here's a funny thing. I keep calling it Alta Vita. You're calling it Alta Vista. And its real name is Alta Viva. So in case someone's listening saying, it's not Vista, it's not Vita, I know I'm slipping up, okay? But it's Alta Viva.
Well, Alta Vista actually was the original version, but Alta Viva is 2.0.
Yeah. Well, Alta Vista kept breaking.
Yeah. I'm actually on the new version, Vista, which has its own share of issues. Just ask anyone who's running Vista. But
actually, it's interesting, Sean, that you say that it's funny because this is a story, based around the internet, and yet it's a backdoor, it's a Trojan horse into the human condition because of all these different aspects that were being let into the human condition by. And it's like you were saying about Jehovah's Witnesses coming to the door. I mean, I think everything moves in cycles, and I think that people, to a certain extent, are maybe starting to backlash about the impersonality of the way the world has become because of the internet and because of these things that are happening that we're seeing flashes of in here. Because not just even with religion, but I've noticed that with companies are starting to do it more. And there's, no matter how above boards and black and white what you're presented with is, people are more comfortable doing things in a virtual aspect, and it's sometimes even more trusting than when the person's like right in front of you, like AT&T is doing it now, going around more to people. In my area, we have essentially there's a monopoly for services in terms of like light and power and stuff like that, and the person who supplies the electricity, because of some supposedly, I don't even know if this is true. I have to call tomorrow. I could have been the subject of a scam on Friday. They're allowed to, because of the government now, go around to every person and ring their doorbell in my area and say, we supply this company that gives you electricity. They don't make it. We supply them with the electricity. We create the electricity. They're just the people who give it to the end user. You're being charged up to 18 cents per kilowatt hour or whatever it is. We can lock it in at 9 because you're being charged too much. This guy was showing me like documents and everything like that, and I still did not want to believe him because, you just tend to be so, so distrusting these days. I mean, people are just so used to the virtual world, and that's not even real. So it's just, again, it's just a matter of like, what is reality? What are we more comfortable with these days? And I just thought it was just kind of funny.
I think it's where the Batman universe works, is that because of the fact that he's always been such a street-level character, that as these characters have branched out, like Oracle and things like that, it's maintained that kind of... It skirts that reality line at times, and I think the best Batman-related stories are the ones where, Gotham, because it's a very real, deep-rooted place, and it does actually emphasize what's worse in our society, that these stories are ones that are almost cautionary to all of us to be very careful of things. There are messages in, I think in the Superman universe, it's always the brightness of, trying to strive to the ideals of the human condition, where the Batman universe really serves as cautionary tales of our universe to kind of, it's funny how the two of them together kind of point out what's best and what's worst in our society in a good way, and you need the balance.
Superman?
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. I mean, whereas the Superman shows us what we could be. You know, the Batman world shows us what we are on a lot of levels, and that's a really good way of putting it.
It's the light and darkness, and it's the the yin and the yang and whatnot.
And at extremes, it shows us the worst of our society too. You know, which is kind of an interesting reality. It's why those, I think, as readers, we tend to read a variety of different characters and look at a variety of different genres within comics. Because within comics, there's so many different genres that are available to explore that there's something interesting to that. It's I don't know, it's fun. This story, it's funny talking about this with the two of you. The story is so much deeper than even I was realizing at the time.
Oh, yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, but before we go on to like the next scene, there was something in the last one that you were talking about that I wanted to mention. You know, she hasn't slept. Well, first of all, the flight's only 18 hours, so I mean, she's definitely been up for more than a day. So let's say, close to 2 days now that she's been up. And I don't want to go into it before we get to that part in the story. But one thing I just wanted to point out now, in case it's important, is that how much of what's going through her head, obviously, if you can unplug this stuff and they can still get to you, how much of what is going through her head and her desire, her inclination, her intention is affecting what she does later on, because this is all starting to bubble to the surface now, because the lack of sleep that she's had and the position that she's in, with the whole thing with the Freudian slip, and she's like, I thought you had a gun. I thought you had a gun. He's like, no, freakazoid, I don't have either. So it's like, she's obviously really, sort of torn between who she was, who she is, and her responsibility, the consequences of her actions and everything like that. And then later on, she's actually tampering with this stuff. So it makes me wonder. The calculator failed, but did she unknowingly sort of affect things by her inner desires? So
it's interesting. The camera thing I loved because it showed that she still has no nightmares due to the Joker.
Yeah, she still has issues. And just that sequencing itself,
which goes back to that anger.
Yeah, her inner dialogue in that was just something that was just amazing for me. She's like, "Tell us, Barbara Gordon, when you were shot in the stomach by the Joker, which was worse, being paralyzed from the waist down, or having him take pictures of your naked body as you lie there going into shock?" Right there, that is just a huge, just whoa moment of, part of the that thing that just rips at her when it's, you wonder if every time she closes her eyes, if she sees that, or if every time she's in a stressful fighting situation where people are dying, she's reminded of the worst moment in her life. But it was also the beginning moment of who she is now. So it's that duality of hate and anger towards that one sequence and that one event of her life. If it never had happened, she wouldn't be who she is. But because it had to happen, she went through this terrible ordeal. Is it a good or is it a bad thing that happened to her?
Well, it's both, and then this is the life and the anti-life that thing is coming in again. It's like, is one aspect of her life going to end, and is she the one who caused it? Because now all of these emotions are right up at the surface, and she's interacting with an equation that could potentially alter reality, or at least her reality. So, I mean, and then her reaction is great, because you see yourself pulling yourself into the chair, and you really feel for her just in the way it was drawn. Like, this is how she's able to pull herself through her life and just deal with this condition that she has, and she still muddles through with a somewhat dark sense of humor. She's like, I'd have to say it was a toss-up, Bob. Like, what's worse? So it's just, it's like, is she in fact the person who's changing the anti-life equation? Is what she did to it. So it's wondering, like, she was warning the calculator off of it, but did she, because of her, because of her desires and stuff like that, is she the one who actually did it? Is that the twist?
It's interesting that just 5 minutes thing that she addresses. I think we've all been there at some time or another. I know when I was going for my doctorate, I was doing it online, but literally there were nights where I was working full time teaching. So I'd come home, I'd grade papers, get stuff ready for the next day for teaching. Then I'd start working on stuff for my doctorate, which involved, you take classes online. So you actually were on through a program called WebCT. You were interacting with classmates, with the teacher, and you had to do your readings for the class. And I mean, it was a ton. It's funny how I think because the university was online, there was even more desire to justify it as a valid working environment, so it felt like there was that much more work involved on that end of it. So there were nights where literally I would go into the bedroom, tell my wife, don't let me sleep more than half an hour, because, I needed to get up and go back into work the next day. So when she was saying just 5 minutes, that's all I need, because you don't want to fall into that deep sleep. Because once you're in there, that's when the being tired really hits you. So that reality of that situation, and the fact that she fell asleep because he let her sleep for a few hours, how that affected her, and how that would psychologically put her in a place where now she's in a much deeper sleep. She's getting those dreams. And, waking up, being a little bit more disoriented than she normally would have been if she'd just done the 5 minutes and snapped back in bit. That would fit. The whole situation. I really liked that, because I could identify with that. Even when I started the show, when I started doing this with the editing, there were nights where I was editing this and then literally getting a half an hour sleep and going to work, and I had to get smarter with that. It was the reason why, for listeners out there, it's the reason why I had to start saying, I'll delay it till the next day, because I couldn't do that anymore. You just can't function that way. Something's got to give.
Really can't.
Yeah, so it literally became something where I just had to say, you know what, I'm just going to be honest with people. This is what the situation is, and it was better for the show, it was better for work and things like that, just because on both ends I was allowing the time that I needed to get everything done. But I mean, it's a reality of it that I think we all have been at those busy times in our life where sometimes you have no, I have a choice in this situation, but when I was going for my doctorate, I did not have a choice.
Right.
You have to get things in at a certain time. You don't have the luxury of saying, my podcast is a hobby, delaying it one day while it will upset people, and I'm definitely well aware of that, and annoy people. If you're honest with them, there's a reality that they can say, okay, it's one day, and, it'll be here, and hopefully they're happy with what you produce. But if you're on a job deadline, or, if you're taking a class where things have to be turned in at a certain time, you don't have that luxury. And in her case, it's all the more people can die in that couple of hours. So
she's probably used to this too. I mean, she's doing it now in this story. She must do this all the time. And look what's happened there in the past few years. She's probably used to 5 minutes all the time. Mm-hmm. This has become what she can do. So that in and of itself, I can't even fathom that she just lives that all the time. And this is life or death stuff that she doesn't want to sleep through. So it's just, it's unbelievable. It really
This is my report card weeks. Which it really, honestly it is. I mean, and we all, I'm not just saying it on a teacher's end, we all have these weeks, and we could relate that to any job. You've had weeks, Jim, I know where you and I have had discussions where it's just a crazy week for you, and you're staying up long hours, you're working later, there's things that are just happening in your life that are doing that. Vin, I know with creating Witch Hunter and things like that, I'm sure there's times where, and where you're sitting there and saying, I've got to get this particular portion done. I'm putting in extra hours to do this right now. We're all at certain points with things that we're doing where we've got deadlines or times where our schedule just gets more hectic and all that. And that's one thing I love about comics, when you hit these moments where you can emotionally connect with the character with something in your life. And this 3-issue series was so much more than what I expected it to be good, and I expected to be entertained by it because I love Barbara Gordon as a character. I didn't expect it to go to this level where we were taking a look at deep looks at society. We were connecting on a more human level with the characters, and it really was the bravo.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me with DC, I guess I've always loved DC, but I think over the past maybe 10 or 15 years, I think that there was maybe a growing consensus, or maybe it happened rather quickly, that somebody or group of people said, you know what, we've got this incredible pantheon of archetypes here that have been created over the years, and look how much they gel as kind of like an emotional intelligence equation, and what we can do with it. Because the stories that have come out, over the past however many years, have just really gone just so far. I mean, in these 3 issues alone, and again, I'm seeing it more just from talking to you guys about it. There's just layer upon layer upon layer, and I'm not saying that other companies don't do that. I mean, a lot of books are like this, but all these characters in the same place, I just find to be just an incredible experience. I mean, just what a great playground that they have with this stuff. I mean, the Bat books are my favorite, but really, it's just being done on so many levels with them.
One of the criticisms to DC's characters for years, and one of the reasons why people got an attachment rate to Marvel characters, were that on a more human level, it was always that DC's characters you couldn't connect with them on a human level
Right,
because they were so
right.
iconic and so out there. And Marvel's characters, you could. I think what's happened is that writers have gotten smarter and found ways to connect us with these iconic characters and
Sure,
to make
yeah.
them more human. I mean, I think there's a Superman that's being written now that is very human and yet hasn't lost any of what has made him iconic. And I think that's important. You can't all of a sudden say, well, geez, we're going to flip him in this other direction. Because I think there is, I read Marvel comics, I read DC comics, and I read Independence and all that stuff. But I mean, if you compare those two superhero universes, which is where usually that distinction comes in, there's a distinction between both universes that make them valid to read, and that they're very different types of characters and presentations. But I do think that has been a change, I agree with you, in the DC characters, in that they've become more accessible. And good writers, I think, have found ways to do that without losing the balance of the iconic status as well. And I think that's definitely interesting about these characters.
Now, one of the things I liked is coming up, we have some really cool series of events that shows Wynn and Calculator working together to take down, Wynn and Oracle working together to take down Calculator. And I like those.
Wynn and Calculator working together to take down somebody?
Right. Hey, slip of the tongue, sorry.
You need your 5 minutes sleep, don't you?
I need my 5 minutes sleep. But the thing I like is it's a nice combination of comedy and action. You see Wynn's little avatar, which is this cute little pug, and I was laughing. Yeah, you see it, and he's like, "Hey, I like pugs," and he has the first payload that they got to drop off, which hacks into. Hacks into Calculator's lair, which of course is the little doggy relieving himself. And then you got the second payload to help out to fix Chaos Larry, and she's like, "Please don't tell me that you don't have you have a different way to deliver that type of technique." That was like, I was chuckling and laughing because it's this little bit funny going on, but it was seriously serious stuff going on because the little doggy goes and licks the face, and boom, Chaos Larry is okay in the real world. So I was digging how it's a combination of seriousness, but there is still that underlining comedy with it. And I really dig these sequences.
With what he did here to Chaos Larry, did you read it that they then were disconnecting him from this game?
Yeah.
Or from this virtual world that way?
Yeah, that was the breaking of the anti-life connection hold, or whatever it was
but
that he had.
Seeing as Calculator's using this virtual world to connect,
right?
They then disconnected him from the virtual world.
Right, and basically pulling him out of it.
Now, are you then taking it that these gems that the Calculator has crafted are his way of connecting to what he's crafted in the virtual world in a portable method?
Yeah.
I think the gems are definitely his way of taking the equation and making it a mobile device. Because I think that's why he brought it to the hospital. I mean, he was testing it in the virtual world, but I think that was just to say, okay, yeah, this works. All right, let me use them on the gems now. So that I thought was I mean, and again, there's a few visual cues that I thought that showed that at the end that I'll bring up later. But I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, I like that this game turned out to be a beta test for what he was planning to do for Wendy.
His master plan for fixing Wendy, and who knows what else he would do with that. And
that's just it. With him, that's part of the problem, and why Oracle would never have let that continue or even start, is because with Calculator, it wouldn't just be helping Wendy. It would be helping Wendy, and then look what I can destroy with this, or what can I do with this, or who can I alter and manipulate with this. He would not stop there by any stretch. He would use it to kill the Doctor. He would use it to kill Oracle. He would use it to try and take over the world. It would never stop. It would never end. And that is the danger of godlike power like that. And it is why I think there's a distinction that we're dealing with godlike powers here, things that should not be in the hands of man. That's why I think there is a distinction between Darkseid and Calculator, is because we're dealing with power of the gods. And should man have powers to heal people? At what point in time are we... it's a very today concept, because it's part of the arguments, and I'm not saying I'm for or against stem cell research as far as this, but I do think it's one of the reasons why that's a very today argument, because are we messing with the powers of God with doing that? And that's where that argument is based in. At root.
Human cloning.
Yeah, human cloning, that type of thing. Right.
It's that type of, where does the nature science, where does the power of God, what are we trying to be? Are we men, or are we trying to be something beyond men? Or are we just trying to heal the sick and help the injured. There's the whole ethical, moral questions, but also the limit of it. What is life? What is life? It's, what is anti-life? It's what, there's a power that, there's an untapped, unknown power out there. If you look at the human body, there is something keeping it alive. Now, is it only the brain firing, the heart beating, the various organs doing the churning that they're supposed to be doing?
I think it's Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, I don't know. There's there's the yin, the yang, the unknown, the whatnot that is the core to every person's being. That is that art.
Actually, the yin, the yang, and the whatnot would be a great Ben and Jerry's flavor.
Ooh. I was just going to say that Jim, you really should write in that whatnot could be literally anything in there. That would just be, literally, the whatnot flavor could be different stuff every month when they ship it. It could just be like you pick out 5 different things from their vats and they just throw it together. That's what I mean, people would be buying it in droves. Like, what's whatnot this month? I don't know, but I have to get it.
This is clearly not last month's whatnot. But you keep getting it anyway because you know that you had one good month.
Yeah.
You know what it could be? It could be all the leftover bits that didn't fit in the contanger.
Right, exactly.
You just toss them into one little thing. It's a whole bunch of Ben and Jerry's thrown together.
Afterthought. It's the afterthought.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. I would buy that too.
I would actually buy that. Wow.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Now, I like that he figures out who Barbara Gordon is.
Yeah, he knows who she is. That's part of the reason why I'm thinking we're going to see this guy again. Not only does he have the look of he's going to be in a comic book, but this is a guy who he met Barbara through the library because his family couldn't afford a computer, so he had to use the computer at the library. And it was just, you see this, so obviously this is a rags to riches kind of guy.
What role do you see him taking, though, I guess? I didn't see him beyond this story. I liked how they used him.
I was thinking love interest. I was thinking he would be...
Clearly she's... I mean, that almost be like... Well, there's nothing that's wrong with that, but I mean, it's clearly that he's a lot younger than her.
He's definitely younger. I was just thinking that. I'm thinking at least...
Hey, nothing wrong with a young man.
No, and I'm not saying... I don't mean it from that standpoint. I guess to me, I'm so used to seeing her who's also younger than her, Dick Grayson.
Yeah.
Like the two of them together. I guess I never saw this guy... Because the way they kind of close it off, do me a favor and keep this between us, okay? Although the fact that he knows her identity would add some weight to what you're saying as far as...
But remember, he doesn't know her as Oracle. He knows her as an agent of Oracle because he got the referral from the Tokyo Brain Trust, who know her as an agent of Oracle.
Right.
So, and it makes sense for him.
So he could be used as a... I guess I don't see him... There's so many DC characters to use right now that I would... It depends on what the nature is of the new series. It depends on the nature of the new series.
And he even says, you're working with your dad on some police stuff. Hey, that's cool. So he's thinking she's, he's not thinking Oracle International Global. He's thinking local.
Right.
So... That's but I see this guy coming back again for some reason, whether he's helps her out. Maybe she moves out of the Batcave and he hooks her up with something else, or I don't know. For some in the back of my head, it's like it's ringing. It
depends on who the writer is of the new series, because I guess we haven't had any announcements of that, have we?
Of what?
Who's going to be writing Batgirl?
Oh no, I'm wondering maybe he might just be like one of the you always have to have the new cast member or two. He might just be one of those. But no, I haven't gotten any. I haven't seen anything within. Oh wait a minute, no, it's in the listing. It's got to be in the listing. Let me go back and look. Well, one of the things I was going to ask you guys is that did it creep either one of you out? Because it did me on that page where when he's talking about I saw you in the library. I mean, first he's completely in shadow. Then it's kind of like that creepy half-in shadow, half-out. And I'm not sure if maybe that's just an art thing, or are they trying to give us a visual cue that maybe he's not everything he says that he is? I mean, I'm sure he's the guy who created the game, but he just seems like he's almost like probing her in a way. Like even her eye when she looks back at him like that, like I never told you my name. It's almost kind of like she's a little bit suspicious too. So I don't know if maybe maybe he's not as altruistic as you think. Why did he create that game? Was it just for money or?
Well, I kind of took it that when he initially first lets her know he knows her name, she was suspicious of him because that's just her nature. She's got to be,
Right.
I didn't tell you, worried maybe, okay, is this an agent of the Calculator? Do I got to throw down with this guy right now and crack his skull before he warns Calculator what I did? But then as he opens up and he says, hey, this is who I am, she lets her guard down a little bit. And that's why when she's saying that, hey, let's keep this between the two of us, you see that look on her face. It's a very soft look, a very warm and inviting kind of friendly look like, hey, and I think he was supposed to be in the shadows to give you that, oh no, they're not going to turn this guy, are they, kind of moment. Right. I think you were supposed to have that initial fear, which actually I'm hoping, I don't know, I may be reading more into it, but because that's actually what I had as well. When he first did that, I was like, oh no. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And it was kind of one of those, heart stop moments that make you enjoy the goodness that comes out of it. And that's also part of the reason why I'm like, this guy's got to be around for more than just this, because they're doing a lot of emotional roller coaster with him that they didn't do with any of the other characters. Even Chaos Larry, there's been a lot of up and downs with him, but I don't know. I don't see them bringing back Chaos Larry, but I do see them bringing back him.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he was definitely well developed, and I think that there's definitely more to this guy than just I'm in it for just a few pages and that's it to help you get to where you need to go. As it is, I'm already interested in him because I want to know more about him. So that is pretty interesting.
Brian Q. Miller is writing Batgirl #1 with art by Lee Garbett and Trevor Scott with covers by Phil Noto.
He's not in Wikipedia. I was trying to see what he's written before. It says Smallville right here. If it's the same guy, it must be.
I guess, anytime you see a new series starting with and it doesn't say that it's a miniseries, so I'm hoping it is a new monthly. I don't know, this is interesting, because I guess, I'm not sure that he necessarily would need to, or would he necessarily pull cast from this if he's starting a new status quo. I guess a lot depends on, why I'm in a different place is my assumptions on where this is heading might be different than either of yours. I don't know. Why don't we finish talking to the end of this, and we can talk about where we think this is heading, because I think that's the reason why we're in very different places as far as what we think this cast might do, or if this cast will even be used.
Okay.
Now, we quickly learned that Chaos Larry has made a full recovery, but there's a little tight twist to it. And I like the fact that, Barbara is, of course, checking up on him, making sure he's okay, but we see that his white cell count is almost non-existent. It's like he has absolutely no immunity system left in him. And, so here we have, he's fully recovered, his heart's fine, it's not as if nothing's wrong with him, but he's going to have a slight problem. It's like he has no immune system. So we're talking massive drugs he's going to be going on for the rest of his life, and or even, I don't know if they still do the bubble encasement for people who have no immune system. I don't know on that one, to be honest. But we're going to have definitely repercussions after this story that deals with Larry, and that's going to even a little bit more guilt towards Barbara, which we kind of even see her saying, I'm so sorry, Larry.
Well, and Calculator would have done this and actually considered it a victory for Wendy, because then he would have just said, well, now all we have to do is figure out how to alter it so it'll fix your white blood cell count.
Right.
He would have used it again.
Yeah, and again, right. And kept using it over and over.
Until he got it right.
Yeah, he'll always think that he can do one better because, it's an addiction. So you're never going to be satisfied with what you can achieve. I mean, if he thinks that he can take on Darkseid, I think that might be his ultimate goal, whether he realizes it or not. It's like, he always needs more. Nothing can usurp his ego, so he's always going to try and inflate it even farther. So that he would never stop.
And that's the problem. A lot of times these villains, and it's where there's a villain mentality. You get so caught up in power that you think the power can do anything, without realizing that intense amounts of power, if you don't understand how to control it, energy sources and things like that, that does not necessarily mean that it is going to only do good things. You can feed only so much into the human body, and there comes a point where it can't take anymore.
Are you saying with great power comes great responsibility?
No, but I figured you would go there because I saw the little gleam in your eye. Yeah. That was your little soap opera voices, right? They were saying, yep. I love that there's little voices in your head that talk. I was chuckling before. As you were going off on some tangent, I'm like, there's Jim's soap opera voices again. The little voices in your head.
Hey, usually they only say good things, so that's good.
Yeah, what do they say when they say bad things?
I tell you, I really dig how Calculator is. As we're talking, he's got that arrogance
There
and
should
that
be a
ego.
comic about you. There really should. Because, I mean, like, when you sit there and talk about the voices in your head and stuff like that, I mean, really, they could go off in a whole lot of directions with you.
It'd be scary. There's no. We're not going to go into that one. But we're talking about just the arrogance of of Calculator, and in the ending of this sequence, you really get to see it, where he's talking about just the power that's out there and how he's going to put it together. And
even his avatar,
yeah,
his internal avatar is very egotistical and very. If you take a look at the avatars of the other people playing this game, the intention of their avatar is to be welcoming and friendly, or some representation of what they're into and interested in. You take a look at Chaos Larry's.
He's a mechzoid.
Yeah, exactly. So it's something, to represent themselves as a physical manifestation. Where you got this one, and it's so clearly it's about separating himself from everyone else, making himself look more powerful than everyone else. It's not about it's complete inaccessibility.
Yeah. With all those cords coming out of him, with his dreadlock cable, he's connected into everything. He has to make that clear that he's totally connected into everything. He has perfect control, and he's above it all, because he's always over everyone.
Oh, yeah, completely agree. And I just really dig the sequencing when Oracle starts fighting back and starts just blasting him. Because in the one scene, you see him in his virtual reality. In the background, you see Chaos Larry's icon laying in the ground. The next panel, the icon's gone. And you can just see, Calculator's like, just as he senses it, flip back, full page spread, this is for Cheese Fiend. Bam! Super punch. And I really digged this action sequence that was going on. Now, it's all virtual, but it was still a cool looking sequence. And they had that split screen going on with Oracle's face at the top, where the virtual reality stuff is going on below it. So it's her doing it, but it wasn't, it was that nice blend, kind of like even a different artwork looking, because anytime they're in the Alta Viva universe, it's the coloring is just a little bit different than what the real world shows, and just those contrasts, especially through the sequencing, was a really cool moment for me. And ending with her just taking that crystal and just jamming it down the throat of Calculator's, virtual, but also affecting his living version as well. We're showing that she is now using the game to manipulate the real world. And I ate that up, that she's now playing the same game that Calculator was playing.
Yeah, I loved that. I loved when she shoved the gem into his mouth. That was awesome. That was great.
He comes out coughing. His icon was coughing, and it just, I like that. I thought that was a neat way to do it, but you also think about all these debates we've had about the usage of the power of the anti-life equation, usage of, what is going on, what he's doing. Now, did she just cross the line by doing that? Because she's using his power against him now.
Well, it's not his power. She's using the virtual world. That's not the anti-life equation. That
was one of the anti-life crystals.
Part of it, she touched it.
Yeah,
she touched it. Yeah, that was her first physical contact with it, and that I thought that's actually a really good point, Jim, because I didn't even realize there was actual physical contact. It wasn't just her thinking about this, that, or the other thing. So that's real. I think that's a big thing right there too.
Well, that's a good point, because she makes this. There's a link between what these bits of code do here and what happens in the real world. And she's holding the crystal as she's saying that, so she's referring to that as the physical manifestation of the code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a question: will there be any repercussions from that simple contact that she had? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not.
Let's finish up talking about this, because I think that's going to lead us right back into the discussions that we're trying to avoid having. So we're heading back to the hospital area.
Once again, that was just, we see Calculator, he's physically sickened. He was coughing before, now he's profusely sweating. He's going into Wendy's office.
He's also clearly off his game, though, because when he comes in, they're saying, was that Gary the orderly? He even has to question himself, he's got so many secret identities going now that he's so off his game that he doesn't remember.
Plus, he also didn't change into the orderly costume.
Right.
And he hasn't been going back periodically as the orderly Gary to keep up his ruse that he's got going against the hospital
Because he's
people.
been so busy working on the anti-life equation.
Right. So it's, it's slowly breaking down for him. And he even comments a couple times how it's right now, it's hard to think. It's, it's coming back on him. And part of this is this part of the pressure of anti-life, part of what Oracle did to him? Is it a combination of every single thing in between? I'm not exactly sure.
All she did was choke him. What do you think she did to him?
She inserted a programming in him.
No. She did, no, but when she did that with the purpose of sticking that in his mouth so he would choke. Because she was using that to affect. If you take a look at how he affects using the same equation, the real world, he was doing things like picking up and dropping, Chaos Larry and stuff like that to manipulate that in the real world.
I took it that she didn't just she shoved it in and down the throat.
No, because you see it sitting outside of him.
But you
later
look
there.
around his
right there. It's right there.
Is that chip or is that another
chip.
one?
It's not in his mouth. It's out of his mouth. It's in his mouth there. And then it's out of his mouth there. She did just to choke him and make him cough. She wasn't trying to kill him.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I didn't think she was trying to kill him. She was like trying to get that into his system.
Right, and if she shoved it in... No, she was just trying to manifest in the reality. If you put something over somebody's mouth like that and shove it in like that, they're going to start coughing and choking. She was trying to get him to deliberately break the connection.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, and that's the purpose that it served. She wanted him out of the virtual world so then she could do something to him. Because he's too much of a danger in a virtual world. Mm-hmm. So if you take a look right there, right next to him is the crystal that she used.
Okay.
So she literally stuck that in him just to distract him. She didn't stick it inside him or anything.
Okay.
Just in his mouth.
Okay, I took it actually that
his lips.
She, shoved it past his mouth because you see how his mouth is broken on his virtual his avatar and all that. So I took it that she just continued ramming that thing down his throat.
No, because you see it right when she's doing it right there. It starts crumbling right around when she sticks the thing in it altogether. So that just did that to his avatar.
Okay.
Because she probably broke his teeth in the avatar.
Yeah, she messed him up pretty bad.
Yeah. But he's just coughing afterwards, so that means he's clearly... Whereas if she shoved it all the way in, he wouldn't be able to breathe. He would have died.
Okay.
Because she would have stuck that... It would have been in his throat. He wouldn't be able to breathe. That's what's throwing him off his game, is that he was forced out of the virtual world, and because he can't use the virtual world anymore, he's coming to try and do it portably.
Yeah.
Which I think he had to do all along with Wendy.
Yeah, and he's now he's busted. And Oracle took him down in the virtual world, so he's like, I gotta go with this now. It's now or never. This has got to work for Wendy. And it's the desperation of him that's, kind of forcing him off his game. And I like how Barbara is initially confronting him, but she's not, confronting him with sticks out, gonna throw down. She's trying to reason with him. And it's beyond the point of reason, really.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, she's definitely not she's putting him in his place, but not in I wouldn't want to say not in a harsh way, but she's actually trying to get through to him, which I thought was an interesting approach.
I do wish he'd recognized her, because they did have that really cool issue of Birds of Prey where the two of them interacted. He didn't know it was Oracle, but
he still doesn't know she's Oracle. So
but I'm saying, but I'm saying the redhead that he interacted with, he did have that really cool issue Tony Bedard wrote.
Yeah.
Where they had interacted. I wish that he had at least recognized her as the girl that he had that flirtation with.
Well, he recognized her later on in Birds of Prey.
Right.
When they have had other encounters with the calculator, he recognizes her as an agent of Oracle, and I think he even knows she's Barbara Gordon, if I'm not mistaken.
Do you think he recognized her at that stage?
Yeah.
As Oracle, or
because he says, "Who the hell are you?"
Then what are you? I think he's got to recognize her.
That's what I guess that was part of my confusion there, because it didn't look like he did, and I thought he should have.
Yeah, he goes, "Who the hell are?" And then he paused, and then he goes, "You." So I think when he says you, then he does recognize her. Yeah.
Okay, that was my question there, because I was wondering whether or not he recognized her, because that to me is really important. I like the whole discussion over he feels this is strongly the cure, but he doesn't really know that. He hasn't. What has he cured using this?
Yeah, he hasn't done anything good with it, but he's thinking this is the cure for my daughter. Let me try it and fry her brain.
He's killed so many people with it.
Yeah.
He has done nothing positive with it. So what makes him so convinced it's a cure? It's just because he thinks he has this ultimate power that he can do whatever he wants.
I think it might be a matter... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go.
I just think it might be a matter of intention. Like, I think it's a matter. I think whether he knows, so I don't know how he could actually know, or whether it's just a matter of intuition. But I think he feels that it's a power source that can manipulate reality based on what they saw happen to the world. And I think if he intends for somebody to die, he thinks it can happen. Which he's killed somebody, or he's killed Cheeskin already. But if he intends it to help, I think he thinks that he can actually direct it. And I just think that, number one, he's obviously, he doesn't understand the power he's dealing with, but also that I think that there's a price. I think it's called the anti-life equation for a reason, because I think whatever it gives you or gives somebody, it's going to take something else away. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's just the way I'm interpreting the last 2 pages. So,
and I would agree with that. There's a price for its use.
Yeah.
Now, I like the fact that it wasn't the crystals that she woke up on her own. When she came out and he was like, yes, like, wait, I didn't use these. And it's that reality on him.
Did she wake up on her own, though? That's the thing that's been... Did she, or is it because he walked in there with this that was all that was on his mind? He was holding them. He wants her to wake up more than anything else. Fine, you got what you wanted. She woke up. But look where the things are. They're on her legs. And look where her legs are pointing towards. Her legs are pointing at Barbara. So it seems like there's this whole connection that's been formed, kind of like almost when you form an intranet or a connection between people joined with electricity or whatever. It's like they're all linked in it. That's just it seems like these two definitely have a connection now, her and Wendy. I mean,
yeah. I took it the whole time that she had woken up on her own. And it just when he came in there, but you're actually right. He came in there with that positive thought going on, and he did have those things laying on her legs when he's hugging her. So
is Barbara healed now?
I don't think Barbara is.
Now.
Wait.
I think she can walk. I think the next.
Did all of a sudden what he did take away the ability to walk from Wendy
and give it to Barbara?
My leg.
Yeah.
Right. Well, she woke up. Now, what did it take away from Barbara, though? I think it's definitely going to show that Barbara has lost something. Or that she's going to feel that she lost something. She can walk now, but what is it taken away? And I think that might be a nice sort of motivator for the series for her, internally at the very least. What have I lost? And maybe it'll be something that was tangible.
What if the cost was, though, Wendy can't walk and Barbara can?
Yeah,
what if that's the cost? It's the trade-off. The ultimate trade-off there is that in order for her to get her desire, Wendy had to lose hers. So now Barbara has to feel
guilty, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
And how's she going to deal with that? And is she going to try and reverse the situation? I think that's a definite story potential for at least one arc.
If that's what happened here.
Yeah,
that's true.
See, I didn't take it that Barbara got cured. And one of the reasons I didn't take it that Barbara got cured is there's no indication on Barbara.
When did she have a chance to figure that out?
But I would think that if she was cured, there would have been at least one little panel where they show Barbara's toe wiggle or something, some movement like in the fight sequencing when she's bashing the crystals or something where there would be just a little side panel where you wouldn't, if you weren't looking for it, you wouldn't see it.
Maybe they don't want you to know yet because they want to keep the mystery going.
Could be. Personally, what I took this...
Dude, we talked... Actually, I don't want to say it right now, but...
What?
This goes back to something else that we're going to discuss later.
Right.
So, I don't want to ruin it for Vin.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was the initial thing that I thought. The first thing I thought is, why don't I see an indication that she can walk? I was thinking, wouldn't the great last panel be that she's standing there pointing the nunchuck at him instead of in the chair? But then I thought, maybe they want, because I thought maybe the cue enough is that you're seeing next issue Batgirl #1. I'm like, okay, there's my cue. I think that she just hasn't had a chance to realize it yet. I think you being told is having Wendy sit up and say, I can't feel my legs. I think that's kind of like almost like that creepy, like Twilight Zone type of thing, like, oh, what's going to happen next? That's what I think is going to happen.
Or here's the other question. Is maybe that the calculator didn't understand the destructive nature of the anti-life? Let's go a different route. Let's say it wasn't. I guess the other way I looked at this. Let's say that Barbara didn't get cured from this, but those crystals just being in contact with Wendy took something away from her? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. It's interesting because now also, they've really done a good job of creating so many plots for this new series. That maybe the fact it's called Batgirl, sure, but I think it's going to explore so many different things than just the central character. I mean, what exactly has happened to the Calculator? Yeah, he's got something in him now where she can trace him. There's that residue. But what else is it going to do to him? What's it going to do to Wendy? I'm not as familiar with her because I didn't read when she was in Titans. But how is this going to affect her? So, and how's it going to affect her relationship with Barbara? I mean, now they actually have a relationship because one has affected the other. So that's going to be interesting, too.
Interesting you should say that, because here's my whatnot theory. I think we've just witnessed the birth of a new villain for Oracle.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. We have Wendy who, this whole, she's awake and she's up, but she's paralyzed. Now, this is a person who, she was hanging out with the Teen Titans. While she's hanging out with the Titans, her brother gets killed. She gets mauled by this dog that they didn't want to have there. Wendy and Marvin both were against having the dog there, but it was the Titans like, oh, yeah, this is kind of cool, little dog, we got a mascot, yada, yada type stuff. And then you have this whole time, the Calculator, her father, her daddy, is going to cure her. And this whole time, he's talking to her. Now, who knows how much of that she heard? My guess, she probably heard the entire thing because she wasn't surprised when she saw him. She's like, Daddy. And to her, Daddy isn't this monster. Daddy is this great man who's going to cure her, who has this huge plan, who, because of Oracle, it didn't work correctly. And now, is it really her fault? No, but that's what Calculator thinks. And Wendy's going to believe what her daddy tells her. You see just the look of pure joy and love when she sees him, and then the horror on her face when she's yelling, Daddy, I can't feel my legs, as he's being dragged off by the cops. This is somebody who now has a grudge against Oracle. And I'm thinking we're going to see a new villain because Calculator, okay, he can't hop online anymore. So he needs someone to hop online for him. Enter Daddy's little girl. She's going to be the new Calculator.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that, there's definitely somebody new in this now. And, we're seeing it from the outside, too, as fans. We know that, okay, yeah, Oracle's a good person, Barbara Gordon, Batgirl are all good people. But these people are in this world. I mean, Wendy doesn't know that Oracle's a good person. All she sees is that Oracle is the one who took her father away from her and who made her not able to walk. So, she's justified going after this person. She's a bad person.
I guess my question, and it fits that the new Calculator would be stuck into a wheelchair as well. I guess the question that we really should be addressing right now is, yay or nay, Barbara Gordon Batgirl? Who do you think is going to be Batgirl? My personal theory, I think Barbara Gordon's staying as Oracle. I think the new Batgirl is either going to be slim chance that Cassandra Cain will actually stay as Batgirl, but I think it's a possibility. Judging from the cover, and the lipstick and the way she carries herself, I don't know that I believe it's Cassandra Cain. I'm thinking Misfit. I'm thinking that Misfit might be the new Batgirl, or maybe Stephanie Brown, but I think even her, she's kind of a stretch. There's no backstory. I think Misfit's and Oracle's relationship would naturally make Misfit make sense as Batgirl, but my personal belief is I don't think it's going to be Barbara.
See,
I think that's a red herring.
It might be, but maybe it's kind of like a red herring that's like a double fake out because they don't want you to think that it's her, that it actually is, and maybe the title Batgirl is not 100% literal in terms of indicative of what the series is going to be. Maybe she is going to still be Oracle, she's going to be Batgirl, she's going to be Barbara Gordon. I mean, these are all facets of her personality that have been touched in the series by various people. You've worked in the library, you've been this person's daughter, you've been the the IT person Oracle now, and you've been Batgirl. Maybe they're just setting it up by just saying, yeah, we're calling it Batgirl, but it's going to be so much more than just that. It's going to explore all facets of this person, of her identity. And I think that it might be that. I don't know. I just get the feeling that it is going to be her. I don't know why she's wearing that outfit. Maybe that's just to fake us out. But the fact that, that bottom part is pulled off and she's smiling, and that to me just looked like Barbara's mouth. I don't know. Maybe it's just wishful thinking. But
see, to me, it also looked like Misfit's mouth.
Yeah, see.
It could be, yeah.
It could very easily be Misfit's mouth. But here's the thing. Misfit really doesn't have that type of physique.
Well, you haven't seen her in that outfit.
Right. Well, yeah, we've only seen her in her, Misfit outfit. So, but I don't know. It's just,
To me,
part of me, it does. I'll have to say, part of me does look like Barbara Gordon in the outfit with the mouth off, but I don't think it is going to be Barbara Gordon as
here's my thinking. We've got Batwoman running around Gotham now. Are we really going to put in a Batgirl now that is in the same age range as Batwoman? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more so that we're going to see Oracle running another squad in Batgirl.
I think that too.
Whether it's directly Batgirl that she's running, and it's going to go back to the original Birds of Prey concept with just Oracle and Batgirl, where Oracle is acting in the Oracle role, and Batgirl is what Dinah Lance used to be, maybe. Or maybe this is an opportunity to have Batgirl, Huntress, and some of the other Birds of Prey characters interacting in Batgirl. I don't know. As much as I want to see Barbara Gordon as Batgirl again, there is a part of me that sees such. Look at all of the concepts we got to explore here with Oracle as a character. If you put her back in the Batgirl costume, you're taking away opportunities to tell more of these stories that come from this computer whiz hack. Everything that Barbara has become that could make that universe truly unique. I mean, I might be wrong, and I wouldn't be upset if, and I'm not saying that I'm even 100% sold that she isn't going to be. You know, they did allude to that and to her iconic status. My thing is, if they're going for the recognizable nature of the Barbara Gordon Batgirl, if you take a look at Misfit's hair color, the look of Misfit,
right.
Talk about a girl who would, in that outfit, as a brand new Batgirl having to face new challenges as that particular role model, that character could certainly fit into that outfit. I guess the question is, yay or nay, do you guys think it's going to be Cassandra Cain still?
I don't think it's going to be Cassandra Cain, no. Especially now with that smile. I just don't see Cassandra being that happy.
I don't either.
See, I don't... Yeah, I like Cassandra Cain as Batgirl. Her limited series that she had was wonderful.
I loved her.
It really got me into the character, and I was like, man, I'd like to see more of her. And then we later on see her in a couple of the Battle for the Cowl, issues and the various, one-shots out there. And she's a really cool character.
That's her from her solo series, too, in all those.
Based on that image, that's not her. Now, is that image the red herring?
Right.
I honestly think that image is a red herring. That's not really who's going to be Batgirl. I
don't necessarily think that necessarily means that's who's going to be Batgirl, or even what the outfit's going to look like.
Right, exactly. That's true. Yeah.
I think we're going to see a team Batgirl where multiple people will dress up as Batgirl with different styles to the costume. I see Misfit going out sometimes as Misfit, but, calling herself Batgirl. I see Cassandra Cain going out as Batgirl. I don't think Spoiler is going to do it. I think Spoiler is going to be Spoiler. And if she's involved in the title, that'd be wonderful, because Stephanie's a great character. And all in all, it'll be controlled by Oracle. I think this is going to be another version of Birds of Prey. But it's going to be called
I don't think it's going to be
Batgirl because Barbara Gordon is Batgirl. She may not be able to go in the field, but she is Batgirl. And that's going to be the mindset, the plot, the story, and the whatnot behind the title, where she's not the only Batgirl. This is a Batgirl. This is a Batgirl. Just like she wasn't the only Oracle. Oracle had her agents. Oracle had her Birds of Prey. Well, now Oracle has her Batgirls.
And did you read the internal dialogue that she had when she was talking about Misfit? During Battle for the Cowl?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that was like a dead ringer that it's going to be Misfit.
Right. But I don't think it's just going to be Misfit.
See, I do.
I
think we're going to have one. I think we're going to have one Batgirl. I agree with you that we're still going to have a Birds of Prey concept with Oracle because that's too good to pass up. Whether or not it's going to be Batgirl working with different operatives as necessary, or if it's going to be a set squad, that remains to be seen. But I think that's too good of an opportunity to pass up because Oracle in that role, I'm convinced it's not going to be Barbara Gordon. I
agree.
I will be thrilled to be wrong. That would be fine as well because I'd love to see her as Batgirl. I'd be just as thrilled to see her stay as Oracle though because I think she's developed. I think she in her own way has become and evolved into a different iconic character. And talk about progression. They actually took what happened in Killing Joke and stuck with it.
Yeah.
Which is unusual that they haven't reversed it. Now. If they do change it because of what happened in the end of this issue, which I see that being a possibility too, because I can totally see the way when we were talking about it with Vin just now, that maybe there was a transference there. I don't know. But I think what's more likely, I agree with you guys, this is a brand new calculator that we're seeing that's going to be working with Dad. I think she's going to be in a wheelchair and going to be a nemesis for the wheelchair-ridden Oracle versus a nemesis for Batgirl. Now, she might become a nemesis for Batgirl because that's Barbara's operative.
Right.
But I don't see there being multiple Batgirls. I think that's the problem with doing multiple Batgirls is you never get to know Batgirl.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's kind of my take. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking initially when I read it, that was one of the things that came into my head. Maybe there will be more than one, and maybe it's the concept and that she'll be controlling it. But that is a good point, that you'll never get to know the character, although maybe you can get to know the essence of what Batgirl should be.
Or you can get to know I will correct that. You could get to know the individuals who are Batgirl. Because, I mean, obviously it's not going to be a limited list. You're not going to have like 100 Batgirls. You're going to have, what, 3 maybe? 2 or 3?
2 or 3 at most.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess I just don't see them going that route of having multiple girls under the cowl. It doesn't seem like a very DC thing to do, but I'm not. I think they would try to establish more of a identifiable Batgirl and a new role. And to me, I think at this point, Barbara's too old to go back to being Batgirl.
Right. Just like Dick Grayson will never be Robin again.
Right. It would look just plain weird to
right.
have him, unless, they gave him one of the adult costumes like we saw with the Earth 2 presentation. But, I mean, obviously they went to Nightwing, and I would not want to see him reclaim the Robin mantle like that. Red Robin, maybe, but even that.
But even that, I wouldn't want to see. Right. And as I'm throwing this stuff out there, I really don't know. This is just a guess. Now,
but they do talk about the iconic nature of the Barbara Gordon Batgirl,
right.
Which I guess that's why I'm even more thinking, and I could be completely off on this, so this is just speculation. You guys could be completely right, and it could be the squad-based thing, and I could be wrong. So I'm not saying that I think your guys' ideas are totally crazy and that they aren't possible. I'm really convinced at this point, though, that they've been talking so much about the iconic nature of the character, and I'm wondering if it isn't the look, the presentation of the character more of what they're talking about, which is why I'm leaning more towards Misfit, who has the hair, who has that overall look. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know what's going on with her.
Talk about how cool would a back persona be if they had the teleportation ability that Misfit has. Because she teleports in, does a couple punches, teleports out, does a couple more punches, and just you think about the nature of just how the fluid fighting style that all the different bats have. Well, now put a whole new element to it and make it a meta. Doing it, that's part of. I would like to see that.
She also, though, you got to remember with Misfit, she also has to learn an element of control. There's a big difference to being someone wearing the mantle of the bat than there is, like, she's bright, wide open out there, and she blashes in, everybody can see her, and she's going to have to operate very differently if she takes on this role, squad-based with her. It's my worry right now, in all honesty, is I think we're all pretty convinced it's not going to be Cassandra Cain, and my worry is what's going to happen to her.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless your squad thing is correct, in which case it would make sense that Cassandra would in some capacity be a part of that. So I don't know.
One of the things you said before, Sean, about like her, she's been through all these things as Oracle, and you wouldn't want to see that get lost if she just became Batgirl. I think that we might see something where maybe she realizes that herself and says it in a way that, yes, I've done this, but I don't want to lose. And I know I said that before, but I'm thinking now about how she would say it. I don't want to lose that. What I've accumulated as this other life that I have. So maybe she would put the suit on now and again, but maybe instead of there being like 2 or 3, maybe they'll just be like 2, where she'll still be. Barbara Gordon, she'll still be Oracle, but, because she can walk, there may be like an issue here or there where, hey, I need to get physically involved. So in a sense, it'll be kind of like a Birds of Prey thing where she can actually be actively involved in it. And that would be maybe like a progression of the concept where she is directing people and working with them, but maybe she can take a more active role, but she also realizes, hey, I'm not just this swashbuckler anymore. I can do so much more. So when I can't go out into the field, when I'm more needed for this, that, or the other thing, there will be this other person who is the constant, whereas I will be the special because I'm the one who started it, and it was my first thing. So maybe it'll be something more like that. Maybe there'll just be 2 of them.
Especially if she can walk, is the catch. I don't know. I guess I'm torn on that because I see the possibility with what happened in this presentation that she could walk again. I don't know though. I'm not 100. I guess I'm very in the middle on that.
Yeah, it's the big question whether she actually has her walking.
Her ability to walk does change drastically. What I'm thinking is happening here.
If Wendy does become the new calculator, I can't see two adversaries pitted against each other, both in wheelchairs. So I think if Wendy's going to be in a wheelchair, Barbara's going to have to be able to walk, whether or not she becomes Barbara.
But I guess adversaries in the sense that behind the screen, because when you think about it, the calculator and Oracle up until now, they haven't had one-on-one in-person confrontations as much as they've had behind the computer screen. So I guess, and I guess I wasn't thinking all along that Wendy. It does make sense that Wendy would be the hands of the calculator, seeing as he can't go into there. But I think it's still going to be calculator and her running the show. I think calculator is going to be sitting there with her and being an advisor. It's going to be a team up of those two against Oracle in my eyes.
Right.
But I don't think that Wendy not being able to walk means that Barbara can. I don't know. I'm very curious for Batgirl #1 because that is some of my questions at the moment. Still at this point pretty convinced that Barbara is not donning the outfit again. And they had me pretty swerved because I was pretty convinced that was what was going to happen from the way that they were. I actually give them a lot of credit because this series did not end the way I thought it was going to.
Yeah, me neither. I thought that it was going to end in a very sort of, expected way that she's going to be. I thought she was going to be out of the chair, even, when I saw it end with that last full page spread, I'm like, this is really weird. I'm like, we see Batgirl #1 is next. We see this girl can't walk, and we see Barbara still in the chair. I'm like, what's going to happen? So I was very like, so I can't wait to see it. Just on a side note, I happened to look at the guy who's going to be writing the series, what episodes of Smallville he wrote, and he wrote the one this season, Hex with Zatanna, which I really like that one. He wrote the one where Chloe and Jimmy were kidnapped, and then he wrote the one where John Jones was taken out and Clark had to go on to the Force. So the Zatanna episode alone, I was really impressed by. So I'm really curious to see what he's going to do with Batgirl.
Yeah, and the Jimmy Chloe episode, that was a cool one too. I like that was good. The romance angle of it, and just is this your true love, and hooking you up to the lie detector. Talk about just the ultimate test of a love there. And I like that whole notion behind it, especially because that villain had a little bit of a code of honor, because when they answered truthfully, he let them go. He didn't just, you answered truthfully, now I'm going to kill you. No, so I like that type of writing. So, this thing has me hooked. I want to see what's going to happen, and there are so many questions left to be answered, but
August
I like
19th
that.
Can't come soon enough.
All right.
I wish this was kicking off in June with the others.
Yeah. I can't wait. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this book more than anything else. I mean, I can't wait for Bruce to get back, even though I'm going to enjoy the ride. But right now, the only thing I can think about is Batgirl #1. I can't wait to see what happens when I open that cover. Like, what am I going to see? And I expected this to be a good series, but I never expected there to be so many questions raised on so many different levels. So I'm very pleasantly surprised with this.
Kevin Van Hook, as a writer on this one, really did a great job of developing this series, because it was an engaging 3-issue story.
He really hooked me in.
I'd also really like to see the script for this, because how much of these panels did he describe to make sure that certain things got across? I mean, because this was very great marriage between the art and the writing in this.
I
got to say that Jim needs to ignore some of his voices sometimes.
No, I'm having fun now. I'm listening to him. That was another zinger, wasn't it?
I'm debating whether or not I should edit that out. I really am. Like, it's one of those episodes where, like, we'll hear half of Jim. I've actually never edited you out. But
I know.
Even though I've wanted to.
There have been times when you're like, man, I really should delete this. A couple times I wish you had.
Vin, let's make sure to talk about Witch Hunter. Why don't you give our listeners who haven't had a chance to read Witch Hunter yet, there's 2 issues out of Witch Hunter. What is Witch Hunter for somebody who's new to Witch Hunter? Because it's a very unique twist on the classic witch tale. And I really liked when I started reading it, I had even from the cover and the title, I had an impression that it was going to be about people hunting down witches, and it is that, but an interesting twist on the whole thing that I thought was an interesting hook.
Oh, thank you. Well, basically, I mean, I always have been very sensitive to people getting taken advantage of and people being targeted because they're different or they're unique or they're inconvenient. And I thought, I came up with this when I was 8, and we were playing with Mego dolls, and when I was 8, that's pretty much what it was, because I didn't really know other than, what I saw on TV as what good or bad was. But, when I got older and I started actually researching this, because I've always been interested in witches and magic and monsters and everything like that. And when I started, researching the thing in college, because I did it, that's where I really sort of developed it further. I saw that a lot of these women, they were targeted because they could read, and a lot of this stuff still, this stuff always goes on. If you're inconvenient to this, that, or the other person, to the Grand Plan, to the New World Order, you're eliminated or you're made to look bad. And I said, what if this guy was just a witch, or he was the son of a witch in a coven, and he actually was just sort of like, a victim of this, and he would get brought back 300 years later when sort of a new old world order was dawning in order to sort of like wake people up and say, reality is not what you think it is. You're being taken advantage of. Everything that you see is just a shell behind which reality is. Your strings are being pulled from the shadows that be in the, and from the powers that be in the shadows. And that's really what it came down to. And people like the smirk that I added to him because they think that it makes him very positive. I'm like, well, when you've been burned at the stake as a kid, pretty much nothing else is really all that bad. And people kind of like that he's actually turned it around and made it a positive thing. And, the long and short of it, just in terms of the bare bones of the story, is that, his mother was a member of this cult. She saw that this cult, the Scarlet Circle, had long-range plans like the Illuminati to basically make the world what it used to be before we ruined it all. And that's what he sees humanity as. And this woman was not going to have any of it. So basically, she was inconvenient. And in order to make it not look like it was a personal agenda, he just said, "Oh, let's burn a few of them." 96 is a good number. And and now we're back, and they were in the present day. And this guy's father resurrects him based on secret sealed instructions he's been given. And this kid is basically told, "Okay, look, these people still exist. They've always existed. They're everywhere, and you sort of need to inspire people to wake up, sort of let them see what the reality is behind the veil that's been, that they've not been pulled in front of their eyes, that they've willingly let be pulled in front of their eyes." And I just love, also, just as on a pure storytelling element, I love eerie and creepy and all the old Silver Age books, and I also love stuff like Babylon 5 and Planet of the Apes is really one of my biggest things in Commandy. So I like just the whole that we're headed for something that we really just don't want to see, and can we pull ourselves out of it? And I'm just trying to basically just mix all those things together into a good adventure serial.
I like that he feels a little bit out of time in the sense that he seems to laugh a lot of times at some of the motivations of the villains. He laughs at the times at some of the things that happen in our society, just a little, not slapstick, the smirk. A smirk is a great way to put it, because he does seem to have a sense of humor about the things that are going on around him, in a way that you would observe something that is drastically different from where you came from. And I liked that aspect of him.
Yeah, I like that he's a bit of a quirky hero as well. He's not your cookie cutter, hero coming in to save the day. Dun, da, da, it's like that the first issue where he's telling the guy who's hiring him, "Oh, make sure you have chocolate chip cookies." He needs chocolate chip cookies to rescue my daughter? No, he just likes them. It's little quirky stuff like that, and some of his banter when he's fighting the bad guys reminded me a lot of the Spidey one-liners type of, funny little banter as he's, there's horrific scenes of, blood and things, heads exploding and whatnot, and it's little, zinger, little one-liners.
Yeah, I love Spider-Man. I love Spidey, and that Spidey was a big inspiration for me. Thanks for saying that. I mean, that was the first comic book I ever read. And I just love the fact that he didn't let it bring him down. In fact, there's a part one of a two-part backup story starting in issue 3 to sort of shed light on his origin. And his father basically tells him, he's like, your biggest weapon is your irreverence, your smile, your smirk that you got from her, your mother, because it unnerves evil. It sort of puts it off its game, and it'll make mistakes, and that will turn the predator into the prey and allow you to hunt the hunter. I think that really is, you can give somebody, because the whole story is a matter of, the backup story is a matter of saying, well, here's this gun, it can do this, it can fire incendiary bullets and explode once it's entered its target. He's like, the mask has multiple things that can allow you to see shades and other things that other people can't see. So like the cloak has is woven with stardust from a pocket dimension, so that the pockets of this thing are a lot bigger than you think they are, so that it gives you a lot of mobile storage as you're walking around. So all these things are like, wow, look, what can I do? But really, your greatest weapon is what you're carrying inside. It's your ability to basically say, yeah, the whole magical cabal thing, not really so much impressed. You people, you're just unhappy. So he doesn't really, he does think they're silly. I mean, you got that right on the ball, Sean. He thinks that after all the pain that he suffered, I wanted to come up with a character that basically just did not go down those same roads. Oh, I have to be tortured. Or I just have to just sort of hide it. No, he's totally. He's had a lot of time to, and I'm going to explore that in backups. I always want to give people backup stories because I think it's add value because you pay enough, and also it's kind of like a little treat, and it gives you more insight into side stories of current times or backup times, and it just shows you that you can. There's a lot going on with these people, and your biggest weapon is what you have inside. So I'm glad that you guys saw that. It makes me feel good.
Oh, yeah. One of the things that I liked was between issue 1 was a 48-page special. Mm-hmm. And then between issue 1 and issue 2, though, I liked that they felt very contained. Like there's an overarching story. And, that's always, which is great, because if you're reading the book regularly, you want that overarching story to feel like you're part of something connected. But I also felt that, like, each issue was very easy to pick up and read. I loved in issue 2, and I commented to you about this earlier, and I really liked it. Right when you flip open the cover, right on the inside, and this is great for anybody who's paging through it in a comic shop to know that, hey, this is a book I can pick up right away. It gives you just a quick little simple recap of who this guy is, what his whole MO is, and done. And it's in really 2 dialogue balloons that are interconnected here, where he just kind of, and it's all his personality that's delivering it, which I found to be just really charming, because I had read issue 1, and then, I'd set it down and come back and read issue 2, and it was nice just to kind of be pulled back into the world by the characters, versus you could have just put a text piece there that didn't have a lot of personality behind it and all that. It was just it was an interesting way. It kind of breaks that wall down where you feel like you're being connected to him in that moment. I liked it. I just thought it was an interesting choice, and it worked.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. I wanted to make. I do, like I was like we were talking about before we started recording. I want to make without being staid or make it become static. I do like to make things sort of familiar when people come back and consistent, because I feel that really goes a long way to making something enjoyable and also making it easily accessible. So, I mean, the inside front cover is always going to have a character that is somehow related to the current story or a story that's coming up, sort of bringing you up to speed, gives you something nice to look at, but it's not in the story, so it's not like they're breaking the fourth wall in the story, and sort of tells you, hey, this is what's going on in case you've never picked it up before, because, somebody never might pick it up before or after, but at least they'll get enjoyment from then. But if they are going to follow it, there's definitely a long story that they can see the threads of running through it. One of the reasons I got Frank Bruner to do the covers is because Frank Bruner is one of my biggest influences ever in terms of how I felt texturally I would want to tell something related to magic. I mean, when my brother gave me Doctor Strange when I was a kid, I'm like, oh my God. So I just wrote to him, and he's like, yeah, it looks fun. So I wanted to have something that would make people say, hey, this is something familiar. I mean, I know Frank Bruner, but who is this guy that he's drawing? And then the guys that I found to draw it on the inside, they were raised on that stuff. So I thought that visually would sort of like tie it in together really well. And I wanted to give people something, again, that's familiar, but at the same time is a little bit different than what they might have encountered before. So I'm glad to see that it's having that you're getting what I like out of it. That makes me feel really good.
I liked the growth between issue 1 and issue 2 as well. I felt like there was a great sense of progression, not only just with the character, but I thought with the whole creative team as well. It was a fun journey for me as a comic fan to feel like I was journeying with you guys. as you were learning your craft and developing your craft and just increasing your knowledge of it. I really felt like there was some solid growth between issue 1 and issue 2, and that kind of, it fit the character's journey, if that makes any sense at all.
No,
Like
really, I felt that way too. I thank you for saying that. I felt that we were gelling really well too after a while.
Yeah. And you got a tough task really ahead of you because you're creating this whole universe. And you don't want to just throw out a lot of dialogue. This is this is that, this is this. But you're laying it out in the different stories. Because I can tell even just we have this main bad group, this main circle of the bad guys. But within them, there is this large dynamics. There is this hierarchy and this breaking down. And as the story is going on, we're seeing, okay, this is that, this is that. So that itself is a really cool, just the growth and the backstory and just the present day, the merging of the two has just been kind of it's a difficult thing to manage, and you're doing a really cool job with that. I was enjoying that part of it.
Oh, thanks.
I like that it feels at any point in time, these characters could turn on each other.
Yeah.
This Scarlet Circle.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'll let it slip right now that you're very insightful with that one. They need somebody to come in who's going to be kind of like a good human resource person and say, you know what, I think maybe we need more picnics because you guys not getting along too well already.
That's one of the great things that I felt about this series was that felt very real with a villain-type relationship. The backups, I do want to compliment you on the backups in both. I do feel like they gave me more insight into his world and his motivations. And there's something I will look forward to in later issues as it continues, just getting to know a little bit more about his past and the present world. Like you said, I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities in backups like that to not only tell his story, but the story of others who are surrounding him, whether it's good or bad. And,
right, exactly.
And that, I think, is I'm a big fan of backups for that purpose as well, to kind of tell those stories that would derail the main story that you're trying to tell, because I really liked the contained feel of those individual main stories in there, but this gives you an opportunity to still tell those stories without derailing the pacing that you have set in the front of the book.
Exactly. I mean, they're supposed to support each other. I mean, sometimes what they'll do is they'll just be a backup story that's what I'm up to. In terms of who I need to sort of examine further, but sometimes I'll relate them directly, the lead and the backup feature. Like, for instance, in issue 3, the lead feature focuses on the woman in black. She catches up to him, as you can see at the last panel of issue 2. There's a lot of triggers that are given during their battle, which sort of makes her sort of give you a little insight into her past, and then the backup story basically focuses on his past, and it also shows you, it all starts with the parents, it all starts at home, how you're raised and stuff like that, because they were raised in completely different ways, and it shows you that, sometimes one person can go one way and sometimes one person can go the other, and it's kind of sad, and so it gives you like a lot of opportunities to see why these people are pitted against each other, and do they have to be? My favorite character in the second one, and the only reason I'm bringing it up is because I think that this has come up on a lot of different podcasts, especially when people are interviewed, is that probably the best thing that can happen is when, as a person working on a book, you're completely surprised. Because if you go back and look at that story, that character, Mr. Bloodhill, I had no idea who that man was when I got the pages back from Scott. I was just putting him in as an extra guy to basically just deliver this line, deliver that line. And then when I started writing it and putting in the actual dialogue to sort of fit the exact panels I got back, I realized he was somebody completely different. So I said, well, let me see if I can put a couple of clues in as to who this person might turn out to be down the line or who they might be affecting. And I was just like, if you see there's a panel in there where he goes, Mr. Bloodhill is coming, and Elisar, who's the big, bad leader, he's like, who? So I'm like, all right. So even the villain doesn't know who the other villain is. I'm like, so that could be kind of fun. So that's something I hope that sort of people have fun with, because I was even surprised, and I'm a little bit scared. So,
and that's real
nice.
That's always interesting. That's always interesting when you see a character they kind of have a life of their own.
Yeah,
they become three-dimensional without you even realizing it.
Yeah, it really is kind of weird because, especially with Scott, Scott's always writing to me and saying, hey, new pages are up. I like the way the stuff is going. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that guy that you put in, I'm like, thanks a lot for dropping him in and making me lose sleep now. I said, because I'm a little disturbed. He's like, oh, yeah, no problem. That's really fun. If you guys get to talk to him at the next convention, or I'll send him by. Scott's also a voice actor, and he's been doing voices on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for years. He does
fun.
The villains. Baxter Stockman, that's one of their villains, and I know he's on Super Jail also as like 4 of the convicts in a few episodes, and he's just lots of fun. I think you guys would love doing this. So as soon as I tell him that I spoke to you, he'll be like, "Oh, I'll have to put them on a bus somewhere and in the book somewhere. I have to put them somewhere." Oh, love the background stuff. So yeah.
That is actually, you were talking about the background details in art, and that is something that I really enjoyed in the book. That was another sense of progression. It really, the art, I felt, grew as the stories progressed. And I really, I enjoyed the artwork a great deal in issue 1, but then in issue 2, Jim and I were both commenting on it as we were reading it, because we reread both issues before we started chatting with you, and we both commented on how much issue 2 showed growth. And I enjoy that aspect of comics as well, because I think any art form, you see a growth in the writing, you see a growth in the artwork, you see, and that's a fun journey as well, that you're always getting something new and fresh, and what can they play with now, and what are they going to do next, and I got that out of this book.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
With the example just from the second issue, and I'm not going to go into detail and spoil anything for anybody, but there's this deck of cards that are passing hands, and just that whole sequence of events where they're going from the one person to the other and where they end up eventually. Just you got the dialogue going on overhead, just talking about how the changing of hands and the changing of fate and yada, all with that, and just the background sequence of you're seeing these different people holding these deck of cards. That for me was just I was like, man, this looks really cool. I really like just how that flowed through, especially where that deck ended up and what that deck was. That was a nice, storytelling.
Oh, thanks very much. I really appreciate that. I mean, it's interesting how you guys picked up on the progression, and especially with the cards in the second part. When I got those pages back, I was just really I had told them what to do, but at the same time, to be able to actually go in and put the pacing in, I was like, wow. I'm like, I was just having fun doing it. So I'm glad that it really had the impact. It's funny because the first one took so long to do, the first issue, because at the time I wasn't sure how I was going to build the business. I mean, I knew the realities with Diamond. I wasn't sure exactly how quickly I would be able to break in with there or at all. And it was before the Havens catalog started coming out, or how I learned to maybe market on my own. So I said, let me just give somebody a book that's big enough, because I want to give people added value. I'm going to be kicking this around for a year. I'm going to be sending it to publishers. Maybe they'll pick me up as an imprint, maybe as a solo book. So I said, I want to give people enough of a primer in one issue that, because it's going to be a while before maybe the next one comes out, I want to give them something that they can really sink their teeth into and give them enough backstory. And now that I'm doing it as a bi-monthly, I kind of feel like the progression in terms of the art is happening because people are just like, okay, we took that long with that one, and and now we don't have the time. So whatever you do, we're done. Let's just keep moving. And I think that Scott really likes that too, because I think the speed definitely helps you. We used to have talks about the pages that took them maybe a couple of days or less than a day to do were so much better than the ones that they labored over for a week or something like that. If they were doing like a big spread or something like that. I think it definitely shows. Like the pages for the third one, he just went so much farther. So it really is kind of cool to actually have less time these days to do it, because we kind of feel more energized by it.
Vin, let's talk about where people can check out previews of this. Let's talk about some of the places they can find out about Witch Hunter.
Oh, sure. I mean, you can go to, it's available through Haven Distributors. And if you want, I can send you, the links and stuff for that. It's havendistro.com. That's where you can order it. It's in the comics catalog, which is being mailed to comic shops. I think the new issue, the one with the Neil Adams artwork on the cover, the issue's mailed, I think, on May 15th. So they should all be getting that. And then I also have a website, Monarch Comics Lair, all one word, Monarch Comics and then LAIR altogether.com. We're on Facebook. You can Google Witch Hunter, you can Google Monarch Comics. We're on MySpace. So I'm trying to give people enough doorways into it that they'll find me here or there. And I'm also marketing myself direct. I mean, I'm trying to get into different types of stores and stuff like that. And we do New York Comic Con every year. That we're locked into. So the other shows is just as I get invited. Like I went to Kids Comic Con, but I wasn't even planning on going. I just went at the last minute because I got invited by Secret Identity podcast. So I was a guest of theirs. So I have a lot of websites I can send you.
And my the MySpace page, Jim and I were, because I was going around to check out some of the links that you had sent us previously, and I went to the MySpace page, and we were both grooving to the Scooby-Doo theme. That was one of the songs that you had on your list up there, which was very fitting considering the theme.
Yeah, the Scooby-Doo is Spider-Man was my first introduction to comic books, but Scooby-Doo was my first introduction to monsters, and that still today remains my standard. I love spooky stories that have that aesthetic. It's more like the visual that they were able to conjure more than anything else. The way that they made the houses and the monsters look, that's what I want to do. I just want to make the stories a little bit more serious, but I still want to have that, that element of humor, because even in the darkest times, you're always going to have, that's when people sometimes come up with their funniest stuff because they're trying to deal. So, I love Scooby-Doo. That's probably one of my favorite things.
I definitely encourage our listeners that if you're interested at all in Witch Hunter, and Jim and I, like I said, the progression of that between issue 1 and 2, how much we really enjoyed following that progression, definitely check out in the show notes the various links that will be provided for you to just click on and go check out Witch Hunter.
Oh yeah, well, and thanks also for just going into it and for wanting to talk about it. I really appreciate it. I've been very honored by by the reaction I've gotten to it. I've gotten more validation that I'm not delusional and that it actually is really good. Trying to come to terms with things like that. So but I really appreciate it.
I want to thank you for all the time you've given us today, too. It was fun to talk with you about Oracle and then to be able to talk about your work on Witch Hunter. I think it was interesting to have on someone who's working in comics currently to talk about Oracle and get it from a writing perspective, seeing as that's what you do. And to be able, this was a very fun. I enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, this was a ball.
We talked for over close to almost 4 hours now, and I'll edit it down a little bit.
Yeah,
I appreciate your time coming onto the show today to join us on Oracle. We'll do this again. This was really a lot of fun. I really enjoyed having you on and being able to talk with you about. And then we can have you back on again, and we'll talk about another book, and we'll update everyone on the status of Witch Hunter.
Oh, that would be great. I'd love to talk about Batgirl after it comes out. So maybe at some point we can talk about that series. I'm hoping that it's going to be around for a while.
Why don't we plan to come back together and talk about issue 1 when it comes out? Cool. Because I think it would be great, considering that it's clear we're in very different areas on where we think this is going. And actually, you and Jim are a lot closer together than I am with you guys.
So we're right and you're wrong.
Yeah. Do you
I think it's a combination of everything that we've been saying, actually.
Do you really want me to laugh at you that badly, Jim?
Bring it.
Well, Vin, thank you very much.
Okay, cool.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
Sponsoring us this episode is CollectionDrawer.com. If you haven't checked out the drawer box storage system, do yourself a favor and start picking this thing up. I love them. First time I saw them at a comic convention where somebody was actually standing on the drawer boxes. That's how tough they are. A person can stand on them. The box doesn't shift or move. Remember, this is a hollow box that holds a sliding drawer that comes in and out of it. So it's a wonderfully tough, durable storage system that you can count on being around for years and years for your collection. But you can also use it like you would any dresser drawer to open up, easily grab your books. And with these box sort upright dividers, it's a wonderful way to store your collection and sort your collection to your own personal liking, which is great. We're all big fans of customization as comic fans. We want to customize our collection to our own personal needs and accessibility. This is a great way to do that. Whether you are a diehard bag and board collector where you want to keep everything pristine in there, you read the issues, stick them in there, and you want to, Some people like to grab 2 or 3 copies of a book to keep one in mint condition, never read before condition. You could actually make whole sections devoted to just books that are in mint condition that you've never opened before, but then keep your reading copies completely separate from them in the same drawer box. There's all kinds of different options based on your own personal ways of organizing your collection. I know Jim and I, we organize our collections very differently. We both go alphabetically, but then when it comes to trades versus hardcovers, I mix everything in alphabetically, whereas Jim does his own separate dividing on that. It's just a wonderful way to customize your collection to your needs. That's collectiondrawer.com. If you haven't checked them out, definitely do so. Think about partnering up with some friends and saving some money and getting them shipped together, because they're wonderful boxes. I've got my entire collection in them now. I've got 30 drawer boxes, and I absolutely love them. I'm going to keep getting them. That's the only way I'm going to store my collection from now on. Also sponsoring us is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com, we're right at that end of the month stage, so if you haven't had a chance, go to DCBService.com and check out some of the wonderful deals you can still get in May and sneak in there. But then we're also at the beginning of June when the new books come out, and that's one of my favorite times, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, to find out what kind of great discounts I'm going to get next month, what some of the new titles that are coming out that I might miss. They've got the full previews catalog up there, whether you're a DC fan, a Marvel fan, independent fan, any of the comics that you like, you can find on DCBService.com. Collect, pre-order, save some money on them. Shipping, whether you want it weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, whatever kind of bags and boards that you want, they do all that for you. I love that. I open up my box, everything's bagged and boarded for me. I've just had an amazing, wonderful experience with them. I was a customer long before they were sponsoring the show of DCBService.com. They've always taken wonderful care of me. So it's great to be able to support a company that's been really something that I've just enjoyed having wonderful discounts from for such a long, long time. So if you haven't checked out DCBService.com, check it out and see if they can save you some money. Whether you are a fan of collecting trades or hardcovers or monthly books, DCBService.com really is a great way to save money on pre-ordering those titles that you want at a price that can really save you some money and really allow you to maximize the potential amount of books that you're able to read each month. It's just a wonderful, wonderful service. So see if they can save you some money and meet your needs. Thank you for sponsoring us, DCBService.com. Don't forget about InStockTrades.com, which is your source for your collected edition needs. Any books that have been released, they have a wonderful collection with just amazing discounts. Don't forget to check out that Batman Companion. That's one I'm definitely going to be picking up from them. It's regularly $26.95, 40% off, only $16.17. That's from Tomorrow's Publishing. It's 240 pages. And I love the Tomorrow's Publishing Companion books. If you haven't checked them out, definitely go to our forum and just do a quick post over there, and people will tell you just how wonderful these books are. I have the Hawkman Companion I read cover to cover. The Teen Titans Companions are just amazing. This is one, I don't know how I missed it. I'm going to be picking it up from them. They're great books, so I hope you give this book a shot if you haven't had a chance to pick one up yourself. But thank you for supporting us, InStockTrades.com. And remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping, which is another way to save even more money. I'm in our report card weeks right now, so Jim, our next episode, I'm going to try to get it out in a week. This is like a crazy time of the year for me, but we're going to do a Speeding Bullets segment. So the next show is definitely going to be a little bit shorter than usual for us, at least in theory. Then we'll jump back into a normal episode length with Long Halloween. So that's definitely next on the list. I'm glad we had a chance to do this with Vince because we'd been for so long trying to get him on since New York. We had a lot of things since New York. Alan Paslak was a great example of a guy we wanted to get on in New York. We didn't. Vincent Ferrante with Witch Hunter was somebody we wanted to get on New York as well. I have another couple of those that I want to get to over the summer that we didn't have a chance to get on at New York. I think with all the recording we did in New York, we would have gotten everybody, and we just didn't. So there's a couple more of those things that are coming up that are in the works. But thank you very much for your patience. And we will also, on our next episode, announce the book that Mandy selected for her book of the month, which will be airing the first week in July. We're going to give people a month to go ahead and try to pick that up before we air that. We're going to record it at the end of June and then air it the first week in July. So I don't want to announce it yet because I'm working that out with DCB Service and InStockTrades.com to get everyone the discount. But I will be announcing that officially next week because I already know what it is, and it's going to be an interesting one because I know you haven't read it yet, and I have, but I think it's one that's going to lead to some very interesting discussions that'll be kind of unique to the show. So we'll have to announce that next week. So we will see you then.
Bye. it's hit, make it, make it, they're it's hit, make it, hit, make
Sean and Jim.